we're gonna be covering Grandia 1. This was sort of like the first. This is gonna be like the first sort of RPG book club type of podcast. So should be very, very exciting.
This game. This one here. This one right here. Though technically KJ and I played the remaster version of this, but I don't have a physical copy of that. So we're gonna point at this one.
I mean, honestly, in hindsight, I wish I would have played the original.
I don't think the voices changed, by the way.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think it was the same voices because I remember back as a kid, Mighty Merlin, my brother, would like make fun of the way Fina says, "Oh, flame burn 'em."
Oh, yep.
And I was like, okay, I think this is the exact same because I was just like, I remember him making fun of that particular move, and how she says it and the way she says it and how quick she says it, and they sound Canadian.
They do. Okay, well, yeah, that was actually the first thing Peach said. Peach was like, "They sound Canadian," because she would watch me play, and she was like, "They sound Canadian." It's so surprising. That was the first thing she picked up on.
I mean, the funny thing is like I didn't even look into the voice actors or actresses. I thought about doing it, but I was like too focused on trying to catch up to KJ because KJ was always at least 2 realms ahead of me that I was like I didn't have any time to like segue.
I think I started. The thing is, I think I started a little before you. Like, I think I started.
Yeah, you did. You started.
I started like a little bit before you, and then I think I kept playing. And I had a little bit more, like, I was playing a lot during free time, so, like,
yeah.
the fact that I was playing, like, in between interviews and stuff like that, I mean, I wasn't streaming. You stream a little more than I do, and, like, also, some of your later streams, I just kinda stayed up and played through. Like,
that's true. I was, like, playing Golden Sun, and you're like, "Hey, I'm this far in Grandia. Hey, I beat Discord."
Yeah.
I was like, "God dang it."
The nice thing is, well, I think it was good though because it gave me the opportunity to kind of, because I had a lot of extra time, it gave me the opportunity to at least try one of the secret dungeons.
Oh yeah, that's great because I want you to talk a little bit about that because I didn't get a chance to try any of them.
So. Yeah, so yeah, I did end up beating the game. Probably got pretty close.
Yeah, I was really, really close. Looking at the like little thing that I was looking at for like mini maps because I was trying to use mini maps. We'll talk about that later. But because yeah, I was a little ragey. Anyway, yeah, looking at it, I was very, very close. I was at like just before the ending sequence starts, and then it just kind of flows into each other until you end the game, basically. So that's where I got to.
I think you had like. There's like 7 or 8 more locations that you would have had to go to, and some of them it's like very short. So yeah, we are gonna dive. Don't worry, Peach. We are gonna dive into the plot.
Yeah, we went on a tangent already, so somebody put +1 because we weren't supposed to talk about it yet.
We're good. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
I do want to acknowledge Jay. Jay is thanking you for the gifty subby, and also Jay, you are always a VIP. I know there's been a lot of things going on in your life, and you don't lose VIP status in my mind for those things and stuff like that. You're an amazing person, and I care about you deeply, and that is not even a question at this point. You are VIP forever, my dude. So
okay. So
Tangent +1, yeah, thank you, Eno and Peach. We weren't supposed to talk about the game yet. We talked about the game.
Okay. Do you want to get into the plot? I think we can.
Okay, so yeah, let's officially start this since we've already went on a bit of a tangent there.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody in chat for being here. We appreciate it. Again, just a quick reminder: we will be reading. We'll be reading in our heads, and every now and then taking what you guys are saying in chat to build into what we're saying. But yes, this is the start. Yeah, so we played KJ and I over the last month. Off stream, so not on stream. We were playing the game by Game Arts, Grandia 1, so the very, very first one for PlayStation 1. We both were playing the remastered version of this game, but, I think we both own the PS1? Yeah, you own PS1 Oh, no, you don't actually own PS1 Grandia, okay.
Not on the PS1 version.
So I own PS1 Grandia, and I played, like, some of this back when I was growing up, so a very long time ago, like, I don't remember very much of it. I remembered one segment, and then KJ laughed at me because it's the end of disc 1 that I remembered, and that's the only thing I remembered, the entire thing that I played this game. I only remembered the end of disc 1 and nothing else of the game really, except for I knew one of the characters that was gonna join the party fairly early on, so that was the only thing that I remembered,
Which
and
is
KJ never played it at all.
Oh, so I actually did play it. I played it a little bit. I when I bought the
Oh.
collection when I bought the collection, I played, like, the first 20, 30 minutes. So, like, the game starts, and you're using the main character, Justin, and he's, like, talking about how he wants to be an adventurer, and it's, like, super lighthearted. It's a 2 disc game, but, it's, like, super lighthearted, and it's just, like, this kid, Justin, and his friend who's, like, always by his side, kind of just trying to explore, and they're, like, playing this game with another person in the town that they're in, where they're like collecting these different things, and it's like the mighty shield, and it's a like trash can lid and stuff like that. So it starts off super lighthearted, super fun, like nothing really nothing really serious, and then you start going off on these adventures, and like you go off on this adventure, and it's like, oh, now you're starting to sort of see some of the plot unravel, because it's like there's this specific guy who's like he's like head of like the military forces, and he's trying to uncover something about this like ancient civilization and stuff like that, but they're still super vague. Like they don't really give you much, and it isn't until later on in the game where you start to see like because Justin was given by his father like this stone. It's like a stone that was passed down to him through his father, and it's like it's mysterious, but it's like it keeps getting them into these areas of that are like tied to the ancient civilization, and then you start to realize like, okay, this is starting to get starting to give you like a this is the chosen one kind of feel, and like he's gonna be sort of tied into this evil plot or in some way, shape, or form. So it starts to have a little bit more of a darker tone eventually, because it's like really they're trying to uncover the ancient civilization to try to like take over the world kind of thing. And so you start to get more of that, especially later on into disc 1 and disc 2. Like you start to really see that, and over the course of time through disc 1, you're getting a lot of you're starting to go to a lot of different areas where like there's one town that's like completely turned to stone. There's like town that's like basically dealing with like sort of like an acid rain type thing. Like there's all different kinds of things. Like there's one place where they're worried about this volcano. Like there's so many different things that are tied to this, and it's like, huh, okay. You're starting to kind of see, even though Justin's like, I just want to go on adventures, like I'm super excited, there's sort of another piece to it where it's like there's this underlying dark tone that's happening, and eventually Justin and the party just kind of get sucked into it.
Yeah, and they separate it almost exactly by discs. So, like, disc 1 is very lighthearted and kinda like, "I wanted to be an adventurer," and and really cutesy and, like, a lot of, like, silly jokes and very, you could tell the main character's quite young. I think he's 15,
Something
um,
like that, yeah.
something like that. He's, like, just, like, newly teenager kinda age, and his, like, main companion friend is, like, 10. I would probably guess, yep, like 10 or 12 or something like that. Like,
He's
she's
14.
little.
He's
Wait,
14, and
okay, so he's
oh,
14 and she's like
she was
10.
8.
Oh, Sue is 8. Okay,
Well,
okay.
it makes sense why she's so annoying. We can get into characters after Polly's done talking about the plot, but
Yeah, we gotta talk about characters because there's so much stuff that happens with them. But anyway, so yeah, so you got like these like cutesy young, and then I'm like, I want to be an adventurer, and it's really cute because it reminds me of Pokemon a little bit. You know how like it's like Ash Ketchum wanted to be a Pokemon master as
yep,
like a kid and
yeah,
going through all like his journey. That's what it kind of reminded me of. So like Disc One is super lighthearted, and then all of a sudden like the end of Disc Two or the end of Disc One, beginning of Disc Two, shit gets heavy.
yeah.
And, like, all of a sudden, like, the plot goes from, like, "I'm on an adventure" to "I'm saving the world," and it gets really dark. And there's, like while there's still, like, lighthearted stuff that happens, it's way more focused on, like, the over plot that they kept being very vague about in Disc 1. And then they're sort of, like, painting this pathway to, like, uncovering a lot of, like, plot development of some of the characters and stuff, and it gets pretty, like, grim and dark, and you can, like I like because you could kinda see the main character age a little. So, you know, he's, like, super happy go he still makes kinda, like, the odd dumb comment, but for the most part, you could see that, like, all of a sudden he's like, "Nah, I gotta do this thing, and I need to I need to save the world, I need to do this, and there's nothing more important than this," and, like, he matured a little bit. A little bit.
Okay,
It does too, but not by a whole
I'll
lot,
push on that a
so
little bit. I don't know that he matured a little bit because he knew. Okay, so there is this is spoilers. I'm sorry. Like he knew when Fina got captured. Like they at that point they knew that the Spirit Stone was like a big deal, right? Yet
yeah.
he still, and I'm pretty sure you got to this part.
Yeah,
He
yeah, 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 yeah.
still was like, "Oh, I'm gonna give the Spirit Stone to try to save Fina." That's not like that's like you're sacrifice. You're basically saying, "Hey, I'm sacrificing the world for this one person." Like who eventually like it's one of those situations where if the world's gone, like that's not really
I mean, that's fair. I guess he kind of matures in that, like I guess the maturity that I see is more of, like, how he treats Fina.
okay.
I think that might be the maturity that I saw. Because 'cause you're
But
right. Because he still kind of
like,
was like, rest of the world,
so bad.
Fina." I mean, fair, because Fina's best girl, but we'll talk about that. Yeah,
It's
so they
their brains aren't fully developed. Oh my goodness. And oh, that's fair. Dumb, you're not wrong. Yes, dumb do be dumb. That
Yeah,
is
yeah, and that's something that you will see a lot of in this game if you play it, of Justin being dumb. Like, just straight up, you're, like, screaming at the console being like, "Why are you so dumb? Why are you not catching these hints? What is wrong with you?" And then entirely forgetting he's 14. And I'm sure as, like, you know, young adolescent teens or whatever, we were probably not the most mentally matured either. Whereas Fina is like 18 or something like that.
is she?
She's
I
17
don't
or
know.
18. She's older than Justin. I wonder if it says it in the
It
driver.
might say it in the manual. I have the wiki up, so I can open that too. She's
Yeah.
15.
Oh, she's 15.
She's 15. Yeah.
Really? I thought they were, like, leading her as, like, this adult, but she's only
No, she's
literally a year
15.
older? Okay. Okay, come on now. Like, why was she so, like, emotionally matured? Maybe
Well,
it's,
you figure Fina. So Fina's backstory, she was part of what they called like the Adventurer Society. So she was going on these adventures consistently,
That's
and she
true.
also had her twin sister Lean, who was like part who joined the army, like the military forces, and was like working very closely with effectively was the main bad guy's son. Um, and so like she kind of had some different experiences. Um, like she wasn't just sort of stuck in that one town like Justin was, right? Like she was. I mean, even when she was first introduced into the party, it was like she was on the ship with them, and it was like she really just didn't even want to deal with Justin and Sue. She was like, "Oh, I'm just going to, I'm just going to deal with, I'm just going to do this myself." So
Yeah.
I think she had
Yeah.
a an opinion and kind of went with it from that.
Yeah, that's true. And I kind of agree with that piece. So the nice thing about Grandia, what attracted me to it is like literally it was just really lighthearted and fun. And especially disc 1. Like disc 2 gets kind of heavy and more into the typical JRPG plotline that you get where you're like going
Mhm.
to save the world and stuff like
Yeah.
that, which is very common. And it's not necessarily a bad thing because I mean it's a trope that works, right? So it's not like they like did anything bad with it or whatever, but it was really kind of fun that the entire disc 1 was just a super lighthearted thing. And there's like a lot of funny scenes. There's a lot of like cringy characters I think we both equally hated. And
Oh god! Oh no!
and
The stupid
there's so
Adventurer
much
Society head. He was so bad. He was just like,
so
"Oh, I'm
bad.
gonna marry Fina. I'm gonna kidnap Fina and then marry her." I'm like, dude, no. Like,
And now that
stop.
I know she's 15, it's even creepier to me.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it's
even
even worse.
creepier to
It's,
me that this like
oh, goodness.
old guy is like really obsessed it was just weird. And
It
so
was so
but
cringe.
there's a lot of like lighthearted stuff, and among the like couple little cringy things it was just this thing. And then disc 2 got really really heavy, and that's kind of the synopsis of the game. It's a 2 disc game. And it's very obvious when you get to disc 2. I didn't think it would be so obvious, but
Oh
it's
yeah,
very
it
obvious
was.
you are in disc 2 territory. It almost looks like it ends the game and then you start disc 2. Like it's like a very like ending kind of cutscene thing of disc 1 where you're like sailing off into the sunset.
Yep.
And then it like
Also,
fades to disc 2.
I also really wish we weren't talking about the ages of the characters because that makes things feel weird.
Yeah.
Because
Honestly, they don't talk about the ages in the
Fina
game.
and Lean are twins, and the Colonel is definitely old, significantly older.
Yeah,
So that's
and we won't talk about the ages
yeah.
because
Let's avoid.
they
Let's
don't
avoid
mention
talking about
age in game. They
that.
don't
Yeah.
mention age in game. They don't mention it in the manual. And we'll just not talk about that because that'll get a
Yeah.
little bit sad. But that is also very stereotypical, like old anime, old video game mentality where a lot of games kind of mature out of that. And even with the Grandia series, Grandia 2 definitely matures out of that because the characters are much older.
I
So
would not take
they
Grandia
they they
too.
kind of they kind of grow out of that like typical 90s, early 2000s anime tropes, which a lot of JRPGs suffered from as well.
Mhm.
Putting the characters really young and then having like really adult situations happen and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right? So um
Let's talk about some other characters because I think we
yeah.
covered.
So now that
It's
we've gotten a brief overview, how about we talk about the characters? Do you want to talk about your particular favorite, and then
Ooh,
I'll
my
say my
favorite. Okay.
favorite, and then we'll talk about the
We've,
rest?
we've talked about Justin and we've talked about Fina.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Rap. Rap was actually he was what I needed in this game. Like he just he did not care. Like he just comes in and he's just like, Justin's too short. I'm just gonna shorten your name to Just. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. Like this is the kind of as the game started to get darker, I was like, this is the kind of character that you need. Like he just had this mindset of like, hey, I'm like he was loyal and just did not care at all. It was great. Like he was like the like comic relief of later game because
Yeah.
he definitely just lightened the mood a bit. And it was great because again, another spoiler coming. At the end of disc one, there's a big event where you lose some characters, and like you're basically just running around with two characters, and it's like, oh, this isn't great. And then you get Rap, and it's like, all right, it's good. We're
Yeah.
good. Rap in the party, everything is good. Like we have a solid party now. So
And you got
yeah,
him right at the start of disc 2, which is great.
yes. Whereas like, oh my goodness, my least favorite character having to deal with Sue for so long. Oh my goodness. Sue drove me nuts. And it makes sense. Like, she's a kid. Like, really, really young kid. So, oh my, she just drove me insane. I just couldn't. I was like, okay, you need to stop complaining. Like, you are so, like, it just drove me nuts. It
I
drove me nuts.
I think having Sue there at the very beginning wasn't so bad, but you're right. And the worst of the Sue arc, and we're going to talk a little bit of spoilery because Sue is a kind of a spoilery topic, so just
Yeah.
heads up, everybody. But with Sue, her whole arc is just she's this young kid traveling with you and is just not equipped to be traveling because she's so little. And their whole plot with her is that at the very end of disc one, they're like, "Oh, she can't travel with you anymore because she's too little." And then they send her away, and it's like, why did you go an entire half a game before getting rid of this small child who definitely is not being able to keep up with everybody? Like, literally half the game you were with this character and you're building her up and you're leveling her up, and she seems like a permanent character, which is very
And that's the
frustrating.
worst part about this is like, so unlike some games, Grandia does a good job of sort of at least giving you something. At least giving you something when characters leave the party, right? So they give you like a third of the experience that they've gained for like different weapons and stuff. But
But
like,
it doesn't
there's
make up for the whole disc one of
it
this character.
doesn't. You have the character for the entirety of disc one, and like you have the character for the entirety of disc one, and like there's magic system. The magic system is like you have to teach them magic based on items, so you don't get those items back. So all the investment that you put into that character, all you get back is a third of the experience, which
Which
I hated.
Yeah,
We can
that
get a
was
little
the
bit
only
more
and
detail
it
about
was
after,
only
but
Sue they really did that with, because at least with the other characters that join your party, it's very obvious they're gonna leave because they're such a higher level than the rest of your party.
and they can't learn magic.
And they
They
can't learn
actually,
magic. Yeah.
yeah. So
So it was
Gad,
very
so
obvious they weren't gonna be there. Where
it
Sue,
was
it was not at all.
it was Gadwin, um, Milda.
Milda and Guido.
Yeah. So and Gadwin already had magic, and the other two couldn't learn magic.
Yeah, but you couldn't
So
teach Gadwin any more magic, and he was like he comes into
exactly.
your party as level 30 when you're, like, level 15. So, it's
No.
it's very obvious this character is not sticking around, but with Sue, you get her from the very start, and
Mhm.
you're with her for an entire duration of the game, and it's not even like a plot segment that, like, I'm not gonna spoil Final Fantasy VII, but, like, other games have done where it's, like, very crucial to the story that they're gone. It's not crucial to the story at all that Sue is there or not there. So you're leveling this character. It's not obvious that she's going to leave, and then at the end of disc one, she's poof gone, and it's like, and the reason why she left, Eno can attest to, because I was yelling at my TV screen because I didn't remember why she left. I remember that she left, and I had it in my brain that she had, like, it was a more serious reason, but as a kid, I guess when I saw, like, her collapse out of fatigue, my brain was just like, "Oh, no, this person is," you know what I mean? I was
Mhm.
thinking something entirely different, so that's what I remembered, even though it wasn't accurate, and I was just like, "Wait, wait, this is the reason? Because she's too little? She's been traveling half the world, and now she's suddenly too little?" Oh my god, I was so
Yeah.
mad.
And it is a good point. So the magic thing, there are enough items to teach Sue and all of the other permanent members all the magic. But like if you're going in this as a first playthrough and you're playing blind, the likelihood that you're going to get all of those, especially because there are some of those items in the secret dungeons. So the likelihood that you're going to get all of those magic items is not as like not very likely if you're playing a blind playthrough. So
Yeah. I mean, it makes it very obvious where the optional dungeons are, but it's also very much like, "Oh, I have to go to this segment," and it's easily
mhm,
missed in a sense that you'd be like, "Oh, I could just do this later," and, like, you
yeah,
continue on with the plot, and then you miss a lot of, like, stuff in there. And KJ did one optional budget dungeon, and I saved it, like, right before the optional dungeon so that I could do it at some point because I was trying really hard to get to the end of the game and beat it, which I got fairly close. But I just got like a smidge. Like I needed like another 2 hours, I think, of
you
gameplay, and I
probably
was
needed like
beating
another
it.
four.
Okay, listen. But like,
I'm just
so,
being-
but I was super close, and it's funny
I'm just
because
being
I'm at
honest.
32, or no, I'm at 33 hours of
Yeah,
gameplay, so
but
I'm very
now,
in line with how long you took to beat the game.
my estimation of 4 would have put you right where I was. Like, it took me about
Yeah,
37 hours to beat it.
and you did an optional dungeon, whereas
True.
I kind of like I right at the beginning of the game, and we'll talk about it when we get into the gameplay aspect of things. But right at the beginning of the game, I was like running around actually killing things because I was actually finding it incredibly satisfying, and we'll explain why. But yeah, so I got really close. But yeah, I was screaming at the TV over Sue, so mad
Yeah.
at that. I'm so mad at the reason for it. Like it was, I think it was more the like you have this character like if they would have done that
Mhm.
after, like, the first couple dungeons you did, and they're like, "Hey, this kid is too young, they need to go home." Which they alluded to right at the beginning of the game, remember? Where you went on the ship alone, and
Yep.
she wasn't supposed to come, and she tags along, so I'm like, "Okay, this little child is gonna be with me for the entire game, okay, like, this is the way it's gonna go." And the only reason I didn't put too much emphasis into Sue is because I did remember that you
Sue
lose
was
her.
Sue was the first character. I'm salty. Sue was the first character I
KJ
maxed
had
out.
no idea.
I had no clue. And the thing was, I was like, okay, I had Justin learning certain magic, I had Fina learning certain magic, and I was like, Sue's just going to be my maid. Like, she's just gonna have all the magic. And yeah, then I lost Sue, and I was just like, well, I lost my high level magic. I lost my high level cure spells. That was the big thing. It was like Sue was so far with the cure spells that I was like, oh, this sucks. But luckily, because they give you certain things that they were called like Sue's crayons or something. Like that was the experience item, and you would like give the experience item to other characters, and they'd get a third of the experience for those specific things. So I gave all of the magic stuff that Sue had to Fina, and I was like, okay, well, it looks like Fina's gonna be because Justin just dealt too much damage. Like, I definitely, I we can talk about it after, but I definitely took a very Lunar one approach to to this game in a lot of situations.
Which
Um,
is kind of funny because I was a little bit more versatile with Justin, and I
oh,
kind of got kicked in the pants later on. When we talk about gameplay, I'm gonna let you know because KJ doesn't actually know this because I've kept this a secret until this podcast.
oh
But I
no,
think we played Justin very differently, and I
oh
kind of
definitely.
wish I played it like KJ's, um,
Final
because
boss,
it was a bit of a struggle sometimes.
final boss for me, Justin was doing like 1,200 damage. I was Justin was doing work at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the same note of characters, how did you feel about all of the extra characters? So we had Gadwin, we had Mildo, we had Guido, and then I guess the last character. I think that we should leave hidden, just in case
Yeah.
people do decide to play the game. We'll just refer to the last character as the last character.
Yeah,
Um,
so we're gonna say the last character, and there will be a part like near the end of the podcast where we'll be very much spoilery talking about the ending, which we will include the last character in that segment. But for now, we're gonna leave this as a mystery. But yeah, so Gadwin, Milda, and Guda. So I liked Gadwin, but you knew right away when Gadwin joined the party that he was gonna leave at some point. So he was very OP. Like his damage, he was doing like 300 or 400 damage a hit, whereas Justin's like, "Ooh, whack, 100," and then freaking Gadwin comes in with like 400 damage each hit. And so you have him, and then he came in with some magic, but you couldn't teach him magic, and he was like 15 levels higher than you were, basically. So it was very obvious he was not going to stick around, which I like. I don't mind if you're going to pull in and out the party thing. If you make it very obvious they're not going to stick
yeah,
around, or it's a very crucial plot point why they don't reveal it, why they're not around, like they did with Final Fantasy VII and other JRPG games, where it's like very crucial to the plot why they're not there anymore. But with this one, like it was annoying with Sue, but with like Gadwin, Milda, and Guido, it was very obvious that they weren't going to stick around. And
it's
so Gadwin
it's
was
definitely
great.
interesting.
I liked his personality. I like how he has this like man to man, like he kept talking about man to man promises with Justin, and it was just
He's
it's
like
like a father talking to his son,
I was
where
gonna say
Justin didn't have that, right?
he was like this the he was like the father figure trope but they just pushed it so hard. Like, they pushed that so hard, and they were just like, he's basically like Justin's father figure, like older brother, like, and to the point where they even, I don't know if you unlocked this. Did you unlock Gadwin's attack for Justin?
Yeah, because you have to
Oh,
defeat
it's so
him.
good. The dragon, like the, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah, yeah, yeah. I got that. It
it.
was
It's
so
so
good.
good. Yeah, I spammed that move, and like he was able to. He basically Justin ends up getting Gadwin's uh like best move before he, like, right as he leaves the party, as a way to, and that's one of the things. You have a lot of party splits and a lot of characters leaving, which I hate. Personally, I
Yeah.
hate party splits. I hate sort of the
The
taking
party
characters
splits I
away.
agree on. It was too
There
many
were
party splits.
so many party splits, but they were good about either replacing the characters in a way, and like quickly, or at least replacing like the amount of damage and things that they do, so that, like, yeah, you lose Gadwin and you lose Sue, but then you get all of the experience that they had, or a third of the experience they had to be able to distribute to at the time Justin and Fina, and also like you get Gadwin's attack if you have things leveled up appropriately. So then it's like, okay, I'm still able to somewhat mirror some of Gadwin's damage output. So I thought that was pretty cool. And
Yeah,
I
and I
agree.
liked how Gadwin came into the story kind of like a father figure to Justin, because you hear right at the storyline bits of Justin of how he's with his mom, but he didn't really know his dad because his dad was an adventurer and kind of went off on things. And I'm assuming it was kind of hinting that his dad wasn't with them anymore. Like he went
Yeah.
on an adventure, never returned. So
It's
it's
even Hunter.
classic like child, young sort of aspect of being like he did. Like he's not here.
It gave me Hunter x Hunter vibes. Like I
Yes.
saw a lot of Gon in in
Yeah, you
Justin.
know what?
Oh,
That's a great comparison. Yeah, there's a
yeah,
lot of the naiveness, the kind
yeah.
of dumbness at times is very, very Gone from Hunter x Hunter for anybody who knows that anime. So like I liked Gavin because he was like a father figure. I knew right away he wasn't going to be there for a thing. And because I was already doing like crazy leveling, I actually got some of experience from him with his like weapons and his magic and stuff like that. Because I was playing around leveling them up. So I gave the books to Justin, and that unlocked for me his big super ability that he teaches Justin. So I was like, hey, this is
Oh,
a
okay.
win-win for me. So it worked out well because I didn't level a certain element until later on in the game where KJ was like, oh, I picked this one for Justin. And I was like, damn it, that would have been smart. I did not do that. And so
Yeah,
so
I mean,
Gadwin gives me like those 2 element books plus like the same weapons as Justin uses. So I took those, I put them on Justin, and then suddenly Justin unlocked his move. And I thought that was really like kind of cool plot line wise.
that is cool. Yeah, see,
Yeah. So like
I
it
basically
lined up
unlocked
really well with that. So
I basically unlocked it right away. Like,
of course you
all I
did,
did
because you leveled up the
I
right magic. I was
well, the thing was, all I did was those were the only 3 things Justin had. For the longest time, I ran through with sword, fire, earth on Justin, and that was Justin throughout the entire, or almost the entirety of it. Like, it was, Justin was so good. And
yeah.
then there was some, so Fina has some, I don't know if it's locked behind story, but Fina has some ridiculous magic spells. And like, oh my goodness. I don't know if you unlocked this, Polly, but this is another spoiler. Fina has a magic, like some magic, that she can stop time. So she stops the bar and she moves basically for 2 full turns where nobody else moves, including your characters. It is so broken. Like,
Oh.
I got it for the final boss, and I was just like, so you mean that I can stop time and then like heal everybody and then buff Justin and then like do it again and just keep, so that's why I ran through like the final boss. I ran through and it was like, yeah, Justin's at like level 5 attack power and just like soloing the boss. It was it was
That's
wild.
also I haven't unlocked that one. I unlocked her like big earth-shattering fire spell. Where it's like world
Oh,
ending. The world
great.
ends.
I
Yeah.
have not Okay, so that's going to get into a little bit more of something that I really dislike. And this will be a tangent. You can just put the tangent counter, increment the tangent counter now. But you can unlock magic before you can even use it. So, like, for me, I was just like, wait a second. So I only have 16 MP, or I never actually got to use that. Because, like, my Fina ended with, like, 27 MP, and that spell cost 33. I was just like, are you serious? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? I can't use this spell. And, oh, it was frustrating because like I wanted to see this stuff. I was like, oh, this looks like it's gonna be. It's called like the world ends or something like that. I'm just
Yeah.
like, sounds super broken. Like I want to use this, and I just couldn't.
Yeah, and I think with the magic system in the game, with the characters and stuff like that, they didn't assume you would, because it's definitely geared for kids and it's definitely
Mhm.
like geared towards a younger audience. I
Yeah,
think they very much went into it thinking you wouldn't figure it out to abuse the magic leveling. And whereas me and KJ figured it out right away, KJ found out that if you like heal people with the magic at a save point, rather than using the save point to heal, you level up their healing magic faster because you could do it. It's the only element you can do outside of battle that you can level up magic wise. And so KJ had like max healing like really
oh,
early
yeah.
on
That was
for
actually that was
for
what
a
I did.
character he loses. So he was very angry about
No, no, no.
that.
That was at that point. That was good. I was healing. So that was sort of like the transition point because what happened was I got to the secret dungeon or one of the first secret dungeons, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this one. And I decided instead of trying to just have one person be healing, I was actually going to try to like spread out the healing. So there's like different traps in dungeons and things, and I just kept spamming like this one spike trap in the secret dungeon to get everybody to be super like low HP and then heal and then go to the save point, replenish my magic, and then do it all over again. And that actually really
Oh,
helped me.
okay.
That helped me get through that secret dungeon because I wasn't dependent on Sue to heal. Like at that point, I had unlocked like the group magic for Sue, Fina, and Justin. So I was able to basically say, okay, I can do this. And I think I had Gadwin in the party. It might have been Mild. It might. No, Gadwin wasn't. It was after I lost Sue. Yeah, I think I did that with Justin and Fina because I think I had Rap and Milda at that point.
Yeah, because Milda joins in early on after you get Rap too, because you get
Yeah,
Rap and then you get Milda shortly after that, so you're back to a team of 4. And again, they made Milda very obvious that she wasn't gonna stay permanent. Like she just like comes into the scene and is like screaming at you, and then
it
attacks
was
like
so
Rap and
weird.
knocks him out, and then you have to fight her. It's hilarious. She's just like this big, like brawny, like female character, and I laughed really hard when
And
she
then
just
her
knocks
husband
out.
is like, it's,
Okay.
it's like a bull.
It's literally a big chibi looking bull. Like
Yeah,
little beady eyes, big round head, big round body is her husband. This cute, like cutesy looking bull, which I was dying so hard. And I'm spamming KJ with
it
screenshots as
was
I'm
so
freaking out over this plotline. And then he's like, I'm so happy that you got here. So we laugh at it.
it was so good. And they're
But this
like,
is Mil this is Mil what she looks like. Like, look at her. Like, she's like warrior buff, super tall, like super strong, like crazy strong lady. And her hubby's this cute, like round bull, and it's so fun. And
yeah,
it's funny, like her hubby doesn't even look humanoid. He looks like a bull standing on
yeah,
2 legs.
yeah. It was there were
Oh
definitely some things
god.
in this game that are just like they're just silly. Like I'm just like this is just funny. Like this
Yeah.
isn't this is there to make me laugh. It's not there to be even remotely deep.
Remotely serious, yeah, and it gets kind of serious in the plot later on, but it's still kind of really lighthearted. Like, there's a scene, or for like, so like the last character. So we've talked about all the characters except for like the second last one you get, which is Guido.
Oh yeah, yep.
So, so KJ saw my spam of this because I was
I'll let you
very
take this one. I'll let you take this one because this character was just kind of like neutral to me. They didn't
yeah,
really.
KJ was neutral on this. As soon as Guido starts popping up into the plot line, immediately I'm like, this is Jar Jar Binks. This is literally the Jar Jar Binks of freaking Grandia. And not even being that big of a Star Wars fan, I can appreciate the reference to that because he talks like a this and we talk like a this and I'm like, it's Jar Jar Binks, and I'm so mad at this point because I'm like, I don't want Jar Jar Binks in my party, but they kept alluding that because he keeps reoccurring, like popping up into your storyline, but he's not like in your party yet. And I'm like, oh
I thought he was going
no,
to be a
I'm gonna.
permanent party member because he was the only party member that joined at a level that was close to your party, except the last character and rap.
Yeah, the only giveaway that he wasn't gonna stay for me was that he couldn't learn or teach magic. As soon
Yeah,
as he couldn't have that, I'm like, even though he joined at a very similar level, I was like, "Oh, no, I'm gonna lose this guy too." Great, because it's the Jar Jar Binks, and I don't want him here for very long because he talks like this, and he's very condescending. And I'm just like, I don't like this character. He's cute, which is the worst, just because he's this. Okay, I have to show the picture because I was not expecting this when I saw the character list of this game in this manual, but like he is the cute little rabbit there. So he's this rabbit character. This one over here to the left of my figure. So he's this cute little rabbit character who's adorable, and I was like, oh, I'm going to love him because he's going to be like the little like Sue's little puffy that sits with her, kind of like the mascot of Grandia. And I'm like, oh, so we lose Sue, we lose the mascot, and we gain a new mascot, the bunny. It's not going to be so bad, right? He was so annoying, and he talks like Jar Jar Binks, and he refers to himself in the third person, and I'm just like, why did you ruin this cute bunny character for me? I was so sad.
oh no.
Oh my god, Matthew, I can't believe that you're a Jar Jar fan. Please, please, please.
I can believe that Matt likes characters that are
Everybody else doesn't.
typically Matt likes to show love to characters that typically aren't that don't get love. I respect it.
Oh my god. So yeah, so that was the second last. We won't talk about the last character, which I freaking adore, but we won't talk about it until the when we talk about the ending spoiler stuff. So that those are the characters that you have. You have like Justin, the main character, is kind of dumb, but like it's very sweet that he's like, woo, let's like go on adventures. I want to be an adventurer, and he's very like he's a fun kind of main character, but like KJ loved rap. Rap was his boy, and then Fina was mine. Like, as soon as Fina joins the party, and she's this very strong, independent female character, which was kind of rare back then to be put into games.
That is very fair.
There's very few of them. Like Valkyrie Profile is another example where they had that. Even Rena and Star Ocean 2, I mean, Enix was pretty good at doing good female characters. But like it was still very rare back in like the Super Nintendo PS1 area of having these like really strong females who can hold their own, and they don't necessarily need the main guy to protect them or save them. They're kind of like equal companions, which is actually kind of rare back then. So seeing Fina and seeing her powerful, she was like an adventurer before him, and she's like really holds her own. And while she starts to develop a connection with Justin, it's more like they're a team. And later on there's a few like saving back and forth between the two of them. But for the most part, they're like, again, like he saves her, she saves him. Like it's still a very like 50-50 thing, which I loved about it. So Fina, if she just wasn't in such a skimpy outfit, I would be all over cosplaying her. She was like my favorite character in the game. Until a character comes in later who I also loved. But like she was the best. Like she was just super spirited and always like, and she leaned like at first she was kind of like a little bit more pessimistic, but Justin's like hope and positivity rubbed off on her more, and so she became way more like positive and like like yeah, things are gonna work out, things are gonna go good, rather than looking at it going like I don't know, I don't think this is gonna work, and being like super hesitant. She was a little bit more like he influenced her in a good way, which was great to see that like the two characters and she influenced him in a great way, and progressed him and motivated him to keep going, kind of thing. So they worked really well as a dynamic. KJ knows I was screaming at the game since like the very beginning, being like, if these two do not get together, I'm gonna be so angry. Because they hinted at it so much, but it was so, like, adorable, their development. It was very, very, like
I'm just like trying my best not to give any spoilers because I did finish the game and I don't want to spoil things. And I know there's definitely people in the chat that are playing the game right now, and I don't want to spoil
Yeah,
too
yeah, yeah.
much.
We're trying. Jack, also welcome in, by the way, Jack. No, we're trying really hard to save the super spoiler for the very end, and I'll
Mhm.
let KJ because he actually beat it. I didn't get to beat it yet, and I told him I was fine with it because I'm gonna still beat it. By the way, I'm still gonna beat this game. I'm actually even gonna go and play the 2 optional dungeons too because I'm very curious of what they are. But like I said,
One of
like, the
them,
very last bit, we'll talk about a spoiler character and, like, kinda, like, super spoilers, but you still might get a little bit spoiled, but, like, hopefully, it won't be too bad.
there's actually 3 secret dungeons.
Oh, is there
Um,
3? I only s
yeah, there's 2 that are like really close to each other,
Yeah, in the
and
same
one of them is
area.
more like a dungeon, the other one's more like a room. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so that's kind of the thing, and that actually raises a good point. We could hold off, let you beat the game,
Ooh.
and then next podcast we can open with the ending if you want to do it that way too. We can we can sort of go from there because I'll remember the ending and everything.
That might
I think
be
it's
an
a
idea, because that might be an idea if we ever get to the point where either one of us haven't beaten it, we could always
yeah,
have the beginning of the last
yep,
or the next podcast being the wrap up of the last one, just to tie
yeah.
everything together, because we're gonna
I
cut the videos together. I like that. I like that.
I'm cool with that because I would feel bad spoiling things.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, because I was super close. I feel like the next game we do, I will be pretty well in sync with playing
it's
it at
like
the
a
same
20
time as
something
you,
hour game
but
apparently. So yeah, I think
yeah,
we'll be fine. I
yeah,
think we
yeah.
got this.
And I think I'll be able to beat it in a couple days before the next game comes in. So like I feel like I'm super close. You're right. I'm only a few hours left, like
Yeah,
4 or 5
you could
hours.
probably beat it after the podcast if we're
Yeah, I
being
mean, I could probably, and then we'll do it. So that's a great point. We'll save the ending discussion, so the end of the game slash the big spoiler for the next podcast. I like that. I like that idea.
yeah.
That way we're not like super thanks. So that gives everybody who are still maybe playing it another month before we reveal it, and then you could just like skip the first 10 minutes of our podcast on Twitch, like just mute it, and then go into the next game. If you're too like worried, we don't want to do that. But yeah, so those are the characters. I instantly was just not a fan of Guido. But Rap, I agree with KJ. Rap made me laugh. So Rap has this line about talking about cure, like, okay, so Fina starts to get serious in this too, and starts to get worried because like plot's starting to pick up and
Mhm.
everything, and she's getting really concerned about things, and she's worried and stuff, and you could tell that even though Justin's lightheartedness is still there, she's got too much heavy thoughts on her brain to like really like be able to get the happy go lucky that she was. So she's got like this expression on, and so Rap like turns to her and is just like, "Are you like constipated or something? Like, did you know that you could cure constipation by like shaving your head and like smacking your ass?" 3 times, and then you cure constipation. And I'm like, "What? What is this comment?" I'm like, "Why? Why
Rap,
is this?"
he's just ridiculous, and he also just like tells it how it is. I actually have a screenshot of it. Um, I can't show it because it's a little bit of a spoiler because it has a character in it. But there's a point in the game where Justin's just like, okay, I give up. Like I suck. Like I can't do anything with this. And Rap's just like, you are the biggest idiot I've had the misfortune of knowing, and then just leaves. And I'm just like, you know what? That's the kind of thing that needed to be said right there. Like, just tell him, Rap. Like, oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
Rap is a very, like, brutally honest kind of person, and he's, like, super down to earth, and he's such a different character than any of the characters you had run into
Mhm.
yet. So you had, like, Sue, who was clinging to Justin and is very young and child, being like, "Yeah, Justin," and, like, in that voice, I'm not kidding. And then you have Fina, who's, like, strong, independent. You got Justin, who's a little dumb and, like, just very, like,
Yeah,
head in the
Very
clouds
true.
kind
Yeah.
of guy. And then you have Godwin who comes in like a father figure. So then you get Rap, who Rap just fights you right away. It's just like, let's just show down, let's just fight. And like and then it's just very like these funny little bits where he's like brutally honest. And he's like he just tells it as it is. And I revealed a scene to KJ. KJ didn't even see that when you later on in the game you could go back to this village and talk to this character, and Rap is just so mean to this character, and like because this character's in love with somebody, and he's just like super mean about it, being like, okay, we get it, Michi Michi, me, 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 me. And he like leaves the room. He's like, I'm tired of this shit, like leaves. And I'm like, oh my god, Rap, you are a mood. You know how when you get into like movies and games where they're like doing like the mushy mushy kissy kissy lovey lovey
Yep.
stuff, and you're like, okay, I just want to kill things, please continue on with this plot line.
Yeah.
Rap like literally personified that in a scene, and I died, and I sent it to KJ, and he's like, that's my boy. He was like, yep, yep. So he was fantastic. And so he does that constipation line, and then Milda is like, no, you relieve constipation by 1,500 push-ups. He's like, how does doing push-ups relieve constipation? She's like, how does shaving your head? And they're like squabbling while like Justin and Fina are like, we're trying to be serious, guys. We're trying to go to save the world. And they're like squabbling on this like weird homemade remedy to save you from constipation. And they're just like, oh my god, it was ridiculous. It's so
Yeah,
stupid, but it's funny.
it was wild.
There's so many
it
moments
was-
in this game that I just burst out laughing at, and Rap was involved in a lot of them because he's just very like serious, stuff like that. But also just like it had that dumb humor, but like in a way that it was entertaining. Like it was just
Mhm.
it was super like charming. So
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
so the characters for the most part were great. It's just having Sue be in your entire party for just one and then not, and it
Yeah.
never alluding that she was gonna go was frustrating. And the reason she goes is very frustrating. And then after that, it's very obvious. So it's kind of like they learned
Mhm.
by that point. But you get Rap, which is a much better third party member in my opinion. He's a
Agreed.
lot of fun. And yeah, so those are the characters. Do we want to talk a little bit about the gameplay though? Because that I think this game shines with the gameplay a little.
I do. I agree with that. Yeah, I think gameplay, and then there's also just like things that are that are like not necessarily gameplay things, but like there's pieces of the game that I would say we can sort of touch on too, like just kind of like overworld and different things like that. So yeah, I mean we can dive into it for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
You want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I really like the gameplay of this game. I absolutely loved the way, like, I loved the learning magic system. I love that you couldn't just get all the magic. I love that you had to kind of go through. And like I really enjoyed the fact that they split things up the way they did. So every element and weapon type has a level. And they don't force you to kind of level up certain things, but you unlock different moves as you sort of diversify your levels of different things. So you can decide like, hey, I'm just going to go all sword, all bow, all staff, or whatever for 3 different characters. But then like you're going to miss out on some skills. So for me personally, like I went through with Justin, and at first I was trying to sort of do everything separately. And then I did the secret dungeon, got a broken sword, and was like, okay, I'm using swords with Justin from here on out. Like, that was basically how that happened. Between that and then the levels that I got from Gadwin, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to do it that way. But, like, it's cool because you can actually see, as you unlock different magic, you can each character has a certain weapon that they are, certain weapons that they can use, like certain weapon types. So, like, Justin can use, I think, swords, staffs, and axes. And so he has abilities for those specific weapons. And then as you teach him magic, he gets other magic or other abilities that he can learn. So I thought that was really cool. I do feel like that does make things a little grindy sometimes because in order to get certain in order to get certain abilities and get certain magic, you have to continue to use them because that gives you experience. That said, there are some ways around that with like the healing magic and stuff like that, and also like some of the abilities they're in battle buffs, so you can actually get yourself into a point where like you can just do a bunch of buffs to make your party like super defensive, and then just use the other buffs to actually gain magic without having to do damage to like a weak enemy. So that was kind of interesting. What else? The In terms of like the out of battle gameplay, I mean, the game is pretty linear. That's one thing I was like, okay, this is just something to note. Um, the compass system and the camera angle was something I really hated. They don't give you maps, as Polly alluded to earlier, so there's no like world map or mini map or anything like that. You just have a compass, and the compass is supposed to point you to the direction of the next story arc. But the idea is like, in theory, it's great. In theory, that compass is great, but in practice, it's not super effective. So there are times where you just get lost because the compass is, you think that it's guiding you one way and really it's not. So that was kind of weird. Another thing that I thought was cool was the fact that like this is both good and bad. There was no multi-target system for magic. It was like there was either single target, there was a ranged attack, or it hit everybody. And so I thought that was kind of cool, but it took me a bit to get adjusted to, and I didn't love that because it was like, okay, with the range attacks, because of how sort of free flowing the actual battlefield is, it's like
Yes.
you can miss characters. Yeah, you can miss enemies if you're just like casting magic and trying to hit everybody. Especially because it doesn't show you. Like, I think it would have been better if they showed you a range and it was like more on a grid, sort of, just so you had some idea and it wasn't just like kind of shoot from the hip. Um, let's see. Other than that, I think I really liked the action bar. Like, I thought that was cool. I thought the ability to like can't like certain attacks being able to cancel out enemies' attacks and that happening to you as well, I thought was really cool because the way it works is there's like a bar on the bottom, and then as soon as you hit the very start of the action portion of it, then you can like pick your action, and then depending on what action you choose and like your action stat, you actually will cast that spell or do that action faster. So somebody like Rap, for example, he was very fast because he was like basically a ninja. So it was like if you casted a thing with him, it was almost immediate that he was going to act. So I thought that was really cool. Let's see. What else? What other things? Oh, and then yes, one other thing: the weapons and magic contributing to actual skills. I think that's what made things really cool. So it was like if you had earth magic, for example, every time you leveled up, earth magic, it would contribute to your strength and your HP. I thought that was something that, while like again can be super grindy, I thought it was a cool way to sort of incentivize using magic. Like, because for a while with like Dustin, I wasn't using magic at all, and then I was like, I should probably do this because that will get me to the point where I'm getting more stats. And that was the case with weapons as well. But I thought the fact that magic contributed to it was also pretty cool. Other gameplay things, I think that's just about it. I think for gameplay, I think that's it. I think the other thing that I was thinking about was like the hints at the save point, but that's not really gameplay per se. But I thought that was pretty cool. Like,
That's just like a mechanic of the.
yeah, that's like a mechanic that's in the game. Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree with all of that. I like the thing, and it was really, really cool too that you could, if you go into your like move set, if you had certain magic and stuff like that, it would tell you how much you had to level up to unlock something, but it
Mhm.
wouldn't tell you what it was. So I found that like really cool because you like you were leveling up your sword and you're leveling up like water or something like for that. And then I learned this like crazy ice move with Justin or whatever, where he's like ice slash kind of thing and he like stabs the ground and freezes everything. It just looks really cool. So like you don't know what you're gonna get, but it's really cool because it's this mystery of like, ooh, what's gonna unlock? And then certain characters unlocked different magic abilities than others, which I didn't realize. So like I was leveling up, for example, Earth on Fina because I saw with Godwin, he had a defense loss ability where he can like negate the defense of a character.
Mhm.
But Fina doesn't learn that. Even though if
Yeah.
you level up the Earth, she learns different things. So it's like, okay. And so I had to like level up Rap with that because Rap ended up being more of a buff, debuff kind of character, which I didn't realize until I started leveling him up in Earth. And you get enough like mana eggs and stuff like that to teach everybody magic, so everybody could get like the different spells and stuff. So you could kind of coordinate that. But like with KJ and how he played, he made a comment. He's like, "Oh, I put Earth on Justin because of the strength stat bonus," and I was like, "Well, that would have been smart because my Justin had like the wind. Just my Justin had wind and fire for the longest time
Yeah, see, mine
before
was
I
fire.
gave him Earth."
None
Uh,
of my characters had wind for a long time.
Yeah, and see, and then suddenly Justin was like learning like electricity moves, and I was like,
Yep.
"Oh, this is cool." And like he learns a move called Thor's hammer, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
like he
Did not unlock
like
that.
electrifies his sword, and like, oh, it's super cool. So like I was somewhat happy that, but I made the mistake of putting healing on Justin instead of the Earth. Earth was the last thing that ended up on Justin,
Oh,
so like
no.
his strength wasn't as high as I wanted it to be, but his,
Mhm.
like, magic abilities were what saved me in the game, is that, like, his, like, literal, like,
Oh,
Thor's hammer did, like, 1,200 damage to a boss recently, and I was like,
wow.
"Okay, I'll take it." And, like and so I made Sue was the healer, so when Sue left, I was frustrated. So then I had Rap and Fina with the water elements. Rap doesn't learn a heal all, and I was really sad about it. And I'm like, why do I keep wasting my time on these guys? So Justin was the only one with a heal all,
I
but he's
wish
my
Justin.
tank, and I was attacking with him all the time. So I'm like, I didn't have time. So I used a lot of items. Let's just but it was really cool that you could customize your characters how you wanted. And me, even though KJ and I played the exact same game, we did it differently in terms of what we leveled up, what magic we put on people, and like who we like preferenced in that and stuff like that. So it ended up being that even though we were playing the exact same game, we went down it a little differently, which I thought was really cool with the gameplay mechanic. Because usually with JRPGs, they're a little bit more linear on their mechanical stuff. And
Mhm.
so, like, you end up kind of playing it very similar to everybody else. But this one, you can play it differently with like different magics that you want to like. You can make Justin a healer if you wanted. You can make Justin like a tank. You can make him an attacker. You can make him more of a magic heavy person. It's up to you on how you like level things up and you grind and stuff, which was really, really cool. And like I liked that aspect of it. But yeah, as KJ alluded to, one of my biggest pet peeves of this game was the compass instead of a mini map. And that's because they tell you the compass is always pointing to the plot direction. But when you go to a dungeon, it's very weavy. And so, and it's just pointing in this random direction. And I'm
It
like,
also
oh,
doesn't reset. So if
yeah.
you get to an end of a dungeon, it still points to the end of the dungeon, even though there's no fast travel back or anything. You have to just
Yeah.
remember the way back, which was
Exactly, which was
time
really
for time's sake.
frustrating. I realize why they did it is to put a more element where you go back and you kill all the enemies you missed or you level up and it's trying to get you to grind a little bit without making it like super grindy feeling. But it actually kind of frustrated me at some points when you had beat a boss and then now you have to go all the way back through the dungeons you just went through to get out to get to the next sequence. There was no
Mhm.
teleportation, there was no like warping to the end of the dungeon, there was no retreat, which in Golden Sun I really like because they have a retreat button. Whereas like once you complete it, you could literally hit retreat your magical ability and you end up back at the beginning of the dungeon. You can leave. They didn't have that in Grandia. So it was, and especially with no mini map, sometimes it's really hard to remember going backwards to get out because you went a certain way to get in to the boss, and now you have to remember that but going backwards. because like it switches your camera angles, so now that you're facing that direction of leaving, but so now you have to like remember everything to weave backwards. And when I realized I was super behind and I was trying to catch up this week to try to beat it this week for this podcast, I told KJ I cheated a little bit, and that's I brought up somebody had made mini maps of the different dungeons. So I
Mhm.
brought those up so that I could just look at the mini map really quickly to navigate back out of the dungeon. So I didn't have to like constantly fumble my way back through because I was finding that frustrating.
Is
And
that
so
something that's
like the like mini map would have been such a big quality of life upgrade of the game because I think I understand the premise of the compass. I just wish it would have moved and recentered and like actually like when you got to the end of the dungeon and beat the boss, then the compass would change to the next thing. Like it would have been a little bit more like, okay, this compass is actually useful.
Yep.
um
And that's actually what made me stop playing originally. The compass drove me insane.
And then, like,
Uh,
the spinning camera angles can kinda, like, overwhelm you a little bit, especially
yep,
for a PS1 game, because it can kinda, like
yep,
I realized they did that so that there was a lot of the times where things were blocking view, so you had to spin the camera to be able to see, but, like, it was a little bit much, and it was a little bit like, "Whoa, okay, I spinned." There was no, like, subtly moving the camera or a slow motion, it was just fast or nothing, and you're just like, "Okay, this is a little bit hard to get used to," and, old RPGs making us drama yeah, Mal, you're completely right, like, there are RPG games where they don't have, like, a mini map and stuff like that, and I understand it. But I think with the rotating camera and the fact when you went into a boss and you came back out, it was switched the orientation. I think that's what threw me off a lot to try to backtrack
mhm.
through, where other ones that I've found did that. So like, but like the leveling system was great. The magic system was really cool. And then I finally figured out what the stars below each spell was, and that's the speed of which you will summon the spell. So,
Yep.
like, as you level that up and you get it to max, you're doing your spells instantaneous, which is so helpful with healing. It's
Yeah.
so helpful with
And
healing.
I'm pretty sure they level up based on your level of your magic or
Yeah,
your
they level up based on your magic level and how many times you use them. So if you're using them more in battle, they'll level up quicker. And or if you're leveling up just the magic in general, they'll also level up, which is kind of nice, especially with moves, because by like where I am right now, just before the end of like the end of game, like a whole sequence of stuff. Justin is spamming like his like really powerful attack moves instantaneous. So it makes bosses easier. It's so great.
yeah.
I'm
I
just
think
like,
Rap actually kind of broke things for me because he's so fast,
oh
and
yeah,
so
Rap summons magic already fast. So when you like master things, I had him mastered with defense up, defense loss, and attack up. So he's like attack upping
oh,
Justin so quickly and then getting his turn back before the boss goes.
we played this game so differently. It's wild because I never like Rap was specifically damaged for me. He has like fire and like he has fire like level 8 and he's got earth at like level 2. But other than that, like Rap just I just spam if it's a group of enemies, I'm spamming his like AoE attacks. If it's just like one enemy, I'm just spamming his one. I think it's called like missile or something like that. That one attack, and he's doing like 6, 7, 800 damage. Yeah, that's so wild.
Yeah,
I
and I made him an entire buffer. So he was my debuff buffer and then he would attack. So he was like my second attacker once he like buffed everybody and debuffed. And then Fina was like both the because she could actually make a heal all because I was
yeah.
frustrated about Justin being my heal all when he's my attacker. So once I got heal all for her, she was kind of like the magic person, and so
Mhm.
she was like stunning them with the magic, whatever, healing. And that, but yeah, having Rap as it, because he has all the buff and debuffs. He's like got poison spells he can learn. He's got like, he can make your movement faster. He can make the enemy slower. Like it was like super. He was definitely designed to be like both an attacker and a debuff buffer, which is really, really cool. And it's so funny that me and KJ went the entire opposite
Oh
of
yeah.
leveling him. He was
Oh,
like KJ's like attacker, and he was a debuff buffer for me.
that's
So
so wild.
that's hilarious. And again, that just means the gameplay is great. Like
Yeah.
that we had two very different they like it's still
experiences.
a very linear game, and the plot wise and stuff is gonna stay the same. But for the gameplay being that different, it also opens up that replayability of like, oh, what if I would have done this character like this? And go
Yeah,
back and
yeah.
replaying the game and making them like a healer or making them a buffer and stuff like that, and seeing how the difficulty level had changed based on that. Which offers that little bit of replay value without being like just kind of the same thing again and again and again.
So I have a question for you
Nice.
because you played other games in the series. Are
Yeah.
they all similar with the leveling system and like the mana eggs and stuff like that?
So the mana eggs is definitely a Grandia trope. The mana eggs and stuff like that are in all of them, I believe.
Okay.
And they have like similar stuff. Like I think Grandia 2 really improves it though, and
Okay.
really like Grandia 2 is my personal favorite out of the series.
Mhm.
And I feel like they've really learned from Grandia 1, and then they're like, okay, this is a great idea. Let's perfect it. And they've perfected it, which was really interesting. And then Grandia 3, I didn't get too far into it, but it looked like it was having a similar thing. So I feel like their battle systems and their mechanics stay very similar. It's just they like improve it a little bit more streamlined and everything, and improving certain mechanics and stuff like that of it. But yeah, Grandia 2 has a very similar thing to it. Some things change, but and it's very much Grandia 1, what I like better than Grandia 2 and other series is Grandia 1, you can customize the characters a little bit more.
Mhm.
Grandia 2, they're very more or less what they are.
Okay.
This is a mage, this is a swordsman, this is a shield. Like they're a little bit more obvious with that. And how
So it's almost
things
like they have like
develop.
set classes almost.
Yeah, almost, yeah. So they kinda go with the more, like, JRPG kinda streamline of that, because technically Grandia 2, um, was on the Dreamcast, so it was like it was very
Yes.
close to Grandia 1 releasing kind of idea. So it's more of a, uh, in between PlayStation 1 and 2 game than a PlayStation 2 strictly game because it came out on the Dreamcast, which
Mhm.
I feel like is the better version of the game personally. But yeah, they made it a little thing. Whereas Grandia 1, they made you be able to customize a little bit better. And like
Mhm.
we both played at the same time and had very different runs of our
Yeah.
characters. Grandia 2 probably you won't have that. But
Got
similar things. There's other things that I like it better, and but yeah, so comparatively, Grandia 1 really had like an idea, and it's almost like Grandia 2, they were like, I don't think people like that idea, so let's make it a little bit more
Mhm.
a thing. But it's like playing Grandia 1 now, I'm like, aw, I wish that was in like other Grandia games. I think that would have been
Yeah,
like
that's fair. That's very fair. Like, I think that's a huge that's sort of a huge thing is like having that sort of customizability and being able to control things in a way that you don't get forced down a certain path with the character is
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that Grandia 1 did better than Grandia 2, in my opinion. Uh
I'm not so I know there's a couple of different releases of this game. Yeah, so I know
yeah.
there's the Sega Saturn version, there's the PS1 version, and then there's the Switch. I'm actually not super versed in the differences between them.
Yeah,
Um,
we didn't play them on different things, and when I originally played it, like, I have the PlayStation 1 version, but I don't, because I played this as a kid. Like, I've had this game for a really long time,
mhm.
and I've played this one as a kid, and then, because we rented it, and then I bought it a few years later when I was a little bit older and I had the money, and added it to my collection, but I hadn't gone back and, like, replayed it. So I don't really know the differences between, like, the remaster and Grandia 1 and the Sega Saturn versions.
I
Whereas
think that
Grandia
version was
2,
kind of
I played that on Dreamcast and played and beat it on Dreamcast, and then
like,
played it and beat it on PS2. So I know the differences, and it plays a little bit more smoothly on the Dreamcast, and there's a little less of artifacting issues and stuff like that. So, um, Grandia, I think, was more designed to be on Sega systems. So maybe the Sega Saturn version of this game might play quote unquote the most smoothest. But I think the remaster did I think like there wasn't anything inherently like issuey with the remaster I found
yeah,
anyway.
I
Um
didn't have any problems with it either. And yeah,
So
I'm
I
fairly
think the
certain
remaster is a good version of it for anybody who wants to play Grandia. I think getting the remaster version of it is still a solid version. But I don't know the Sega Saturn, and I'd have to replay the um the PS1 to see if there was any like significant changes. Besides, like I know some of I know they changed a few of the wording things.
yeah, the Sega Saturn version was Japan only, so I
Okay,
think the
so
only that exists of that are like fan translations.
yeah, so that there we go. So that is something that like we wouldn't even be able to like really compare unless we get a fan translation. Yeah. But yeah, we talked about gameplay, characters. What did you think about the soundtrack?
Oh, I love the soundtrack. I actually one song in particular. It's the Disc 2 battle theme. The Disc 2
Oh,
battle theme
so good.
hits so well. Like, oh my goodness, the Disc 2 battle theme is fantastic.
Agreed. I'm gonna agree with you
Oh
on
my
that one. That
goodness.
one.
I was
As soon as
so
you hear it on this too, that the battle
yep.
theme changed, I got so hyped.
Yeah, that was definitely like my favorite thing in the entire soundtrack. But it was definitely I think they did a good job of like, oh, this is the music for the tone of the different things. So like if you're in a more adventure-y, happy tone in the game, like generally speaking, I think um, the soundtracks are pretty good. When you're in like a cave or you're in like a jungle area, like they really do a good job of making sure that the soundtrack complements that. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, like you can hear the birds in the jungle, like
Mm-hmm.
in the soundtrack. You can hear the waves when you're in that one town where you're by the ocean and stuff like
Yes.
that. You can hear the waves hitting the thing. Those little things just tie you into the world and immerse you more. Even though the voice acting was a little bit more sparring. The fact that it had voice acting at all blew my mind for a PlayStation One Sega Saturn game. Like, the fact that it had any voice acting was shocking. Like, some PlayStation 1 games do it, a lot of them don't.
Mm-hmm.
Like Final Fantasy 7, for example, has no voice acting in it. So like the fact that they put that in there and every now and then they had these voices and stuff like that was nice. And in the battle, you were hearing the voices a lot. And
I
everything,
mean,
which was kind of
each
cool.
character has like they have like a handful of phrases for the things that they're potentially doing. So that
Yeah,
was
and they're
really
not saying the same thing over and over again. Sometimes it's cycles and stuff, even with the moves, like,
cool. Mm-hmm.
you know, Tina's got different lines, Justin's got different lines for different moves, and it's like at least it's not as repetitive that way, which is kind of nice. And yeah, and the OST like blended really well in that. So like the disc one had way more happier, lighter music because it's more happier, lighter topic. And then when you sit to disc two, even the battle system is more like, okay, this is getting more intense. It's getting more like, oh my goodness, shit has happened. And you're just
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, they timed that so well where they made it way more like pull it like more serious music in the second disc and more lighthearted music in the first one. Like even like like their character themes, like Justin's and Sue's and stuff like that, are very like really cutesy and upbeat. And then when you're like hearing stuff or whatever in the second disc, you're like, oh, okay. And the battle system is one of the ones that changed where it was such a noticeable tone difference where it's like, "Oh," in the other one, it's like, "Oh, there's a boss going on," and then and then in, like, the friggin' disc 2, it's like, "Oh, there's a boss happening," because
Yeah.
stuff got dark,
Yeah.
and there's, like, more emotional music playing, like, there's more, like, sad moments in disc 2 and stuff like that, like, it's sad tone, and everything, so they have, like, more sad music in it. Oh, it's just they did the OST so well, like, the music was fitted so well.
And on that same note, like I think their use of the cutscenes in the game kind of also helped to contribute to that. Like I think you start to see different cutscenes in the game that really sort of push that emotion, regardless of what it is. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely like that was I think sort of the OST, the cutscenes, the voice acting, like that stuff really does well. Really, really does well there with pushing the feeling of the game.
Yeah, exactly. So like it yeah, like the OST did such a good like I didn't look up the composer, but I'm definitely gonna look it up because I think it's gonna be a soundtrack I download. Um, so because I think it's gonna go into my rotation now because it's really really good.
It is. It definitely is.
For those art streams I do, I'm gonna throw in the Grandia OST in there. But
I'm
it's
for
really
it.
good. And that's something that I really liked across all the Grandia games is they do
Okay.
really, really good with the music. So the OST in Grandia 1, I think is just as powerful as the OST in Grandia 2. And Grandia 3, one of the things I remembered I really enjoyed was the music. I didn't get very, very
Oh,
far in the game, but what I heard of the music, it was really, really so.
you want to hear something funny?
But
The music for Grandia was written by the same composer for the Lunar series.
okay, all right. I love Lunar soundtrack, so that makes so much
At least for the
sense.
Sega CD. It says for the I don't know what the difference.
Maybe they like tweak the music for Grandia 1 or something like that. But that makes sense because Lunar also came out for Sega
Yeah.
originally. So that makes a lot of sense that it's the similar. Oh, that's hilarious. I didn't even make that connection. But you know what? Grandia is like an anime style like JRPG. It's got little anime elements like Lunar does, and you know what? Like that makes a heck of a lot of sense. Like I didn't know that compared. That's hilarious. That's great though because I love the Lunar series.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. It's kind of wild to think about. I didn't make that connection either. I didn't even think about it. I was just like, oh, this is great. Like I enjoy this.
Yeah, little mind blowing, but yeah, one thing to lead into. So we talked about the soundtrack. Now I want to talk about a little bit about the cutscenes. I think they should have gone one way or another. So there's not very many cutscenes in this game, but for the very few that there are, they tried a couple times to put anime 2D characters with very obvious 3D backgrounds. And it's such a disconnect that I'm like, either go all in with the anime like Lunar did, where all their cutscenes was anime, which was animated anime style, which is great. Lean into that. You've got the character profiles as anime already. You can do that, and it still flows really well as a game. Well, but Grandia was like, but we're a 3D game, so they tried to do their cutscenes in 3D, and then sometimes every now and then they throw in the 2D anime in front of it, and it just looks really disconnected. And it's like one of the only things of this that I didn't like was like they're so infrequent, so it's not like it's not gonna pull you out of the experience. It was just we're talking about stuff in the game, and this is getting kind of nitpicky, but like the cutscenes, the few that they do have, like they're trying to blend that 3D with 2D, but they're not at a stage development wise back then that they could have done that very well. It's not like an Octopath or something like that where they blend that really really well because they didn't have the technology and stuff. It was just I wish they would have just leaned into the anime. They had the anime profiles and they all changed depending on what the character's feeling. And there's like Fina's got like 30 different expressions that she cycles through, which is great. When they're talking, they have like this little anime picture above their dialogue, and it changes depending on how they're feeling,
Which is awesome.
which is great. So it's like all they had to do for the little cutscenes they had, which probably would have taken a lot less graphical intensity for the discs, was just make them little cute little anime cutscenes. Even if they kept them as infrequent as they did, like it just felt like they were trying to do like two things and mush them together, and it just didn't come off quite connected.
And see, it's so funny because like I noticed it, but I didn't care. I was just
Like I said, I'm getting nitpicky. It's very tiny because there's very few cutscenes. I think there's like 4 I've run into.
There weren't a ton.
Yeah, so it was just
But
a tiny little bit.
What they did when they had them, they were effective in my opinion.
They got it. They got it across mainly.
I have some other nitpicky things that are you actually haven't run into yet. you haven't run into them yet, but I have some other nitpicky things.
Yeah, go for it.
Without spoiling, like there are some like the power of friendship moments, and that hurt me. It just I couldn't. I was like, no, why? Like, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. Like this game, like they just went like light-hearted to serious to we're gonna get through this with the power of friendship, and I'm like, no, don't. Like, why? Why is this a thing? So that was something, and I mean, it makes sense. Like, it's an RPG from the '90s. Like, I kind of can expect something like that. The other thing, there are parts of the end game that are just like not actually hard for any reason. And one thing I wanted to note was like this really annoying, stupid memory puzzle room. Oh, it drove me nuts. I was so mad.
Oh no. You had said something about a puzzle room, and I don't think I've gotten there yet.
No, you're not there yet. It annoyed me so much. Like, I was just like, oh, this is definitely an area, and it's like you have to just remember some things, and it's just not great. Like, so that was definitely something I was like, let's not do this. And then lastly, actually, the inventory system.
I
you
didn't think of that. Yeah.
You had said that you used a lot of items. So, like,
It was
because you used items, you probably didn't have as much problem as I did. But like, I didn't use items in this game until probably like healing items or anything until like very, very late game. When you start getting party splits where they start taking people out of the party.
Okay.
Yeah,
you just had an inventory stocked of items that you constantly had to throw in your stash?
That I had to throw in the stash or throw away. Because it's like, if I find a mana egg and I don't have the ability to hold it, then like, I'm just stuck. That's the thing. I wasn't using items. That was the thing.
But I wasn't using them very much as I should have been. They give you a lot of like damage items and things like that is just really not needed.
Every damage item I got, I sold.
Yeah, and so you get those, and then you start getting like a lot of like move enhancing items that can only be used in battle and stuff like that, where I really didn't need any of this stuff until disc 2. The only thing I used before disc 2 was healing items on the very rare occasion, because I had Sue as a healer, right? So it wasn't until they took Sue away that like I was like, oh no. So there's a gap where I was using a lot of items and I didn't find the inventory management system as like, so it's like it was very much wanting you to use items but not giving you a reason to use them.
Yeah.
So exactly. It ended up being very difficult because each character, so when we're talking about inventory management systems, every character can hold up to 12 items in their inventory at a time. And depending on how many characters you have in the party, you might have 24 slots, 36 slots, 12 slots, or 48, because it's 12 per character. And so that's one thing about Golden Sun that I get frustrated with too. But at least with Golden Sun, I found a more use of the items very early on.
Golden Sun.
Whereas Grandia, there's no reason to use a lot of the items in the first disc. Like, enemies are not, as long as you're going through and you're fighting a few enemies each dungeon, you're not super underleveled. You really need them. Even for boss fights, you don't really need to worry, especially if you teach somebody with like, as soon as you teach somebody with healing magic, it's like you very, very rarely need those things. And then you're not getting the like upping your attack power by 2 items and stuff like that until disc 2 anyway. So it's like they're like the few little things that you get, like the damaging items. I was like, I was doing more damage with Justin, like just smacking them with a sword, than a bomb going off and doing 50 damage would have done. So I'm just like, I wasn't using them and stuff like that. So it was very like, I constantly had to keep going back to the stash and dumping or discarding. I discarded items a lot. Anytime I got like explosion stuff, I just discarded it, because you get enough money in the game too that I didn't need the need to sell really ever, except for maybe used weapons. And then even then they had a trade system where you'd buy a new weapon and you could go to trade, where it's like it would like minus off the difference. I thought that was really cool, and I wish more games did that.
really, really, really nice. Like
that was a quality of life upgrade I think more JRPGs should do, where you go into your inventory and rather than just having to like equip a new character and then go back into your inventory and sell it, that you could be like trade, and that where you buy it for the difference between the selling the item and it gets rid of the item so that you don't have to get back into your inventory. It's just a nice little
something that something like Golden Sun had. Like you
yeah.
can
Golden and
when
Sun
you
had the
buy an
same
item,
thing.
when you buy an item, it's like, oh, who is this for? You say it's for this person. It's like, do you want to equip it? And do you want to sell us this other thing? Like, that's actually something Camelot games are really good at. Because I know, I'm pretty sure that, did Shining Force have that? Shining Force might have had that. I'm not remembering now, but I thought it did.
Yeah, and Skizzy makes a great point. A lot of JRPGs suffer from the ability of making you use items, and you just hoard all the items, and then you get to the end of the game and go, "Oh, I've got like 50 mega elixirs, and I've never used these."
Yeah.
Kind of idea. But at least the difference with those is they're not taking up like so you get in a lot of games you get a huge inventory bag, like you can hold like hundreds of items so that if you're not using them it's not such a big deal. But with Grandia, you can only hold at a time a maximum of 48 items. So you need to be a little bit more strategic, especially when you get further in late game stuff, that when you're starting to actually use certain things a little bit more, like the move enhancing stuff. I love the little fruit that you can get that ups attack power by 2. So handy. I love those things. And so like I was using them a little bit more late game, but like so I had to be more strategic with the 12 spots each person had. Now I understand that's more realistic because, like, how is somebody carrying like 100 potions and everything on them and stuff? I get it. But it was brutal sometimes with the stash.
You mean your
Really had to
backpack
work.
doesn't have a never-ending space in it?
Yeah, with a game that has magic in it, you would think that they'd have like your immediate items that you can use in battle, and then your other items that you can access through like a magical bag. Something like
Yeah.
that would have been better. Like even if they were like, we don't want you to have like a ton of items because it makes the game stupid easy. Um, that you can use in battle, still have it the 12 that you can use in battle, but allow me to like switch on the fly and not have to keep going back
Mm-hmm.
to a save point with a stash. Because not all save points had a stash beside them. They only started doing that late game.
Yeah.
Like you'd have to go to an inn and use the stash system there. Like it's like please.
Yeah. That was one of my the inventory system definitely was rough.
So or at least give us more you need to use items, or but again that's a JRPG thing, like that Skitty's absolutely right with that one, and that's a
Yeah.
great point. Is that a lot of JRPGs especially early on don't give you any real incentive to use items or very great need to use items, or you keep thinking, oh, the end boss or there's going to be a boss coming up that you need those items for, and then you beat the game and you're like, ah, I didn't need
Yeah,
to hoard these.
the only items I really felt like I needed to use were like the things that were like stat buff items. So it was like life up or defense up or attack up.
Yes, I
like
love
that.
those. Yeah, those are very very handy, especially for boss fights at Grandia.
I gave every single one of them to Justin. I have awful main character bias, and Justin got every single buff that I found.
Well, that's why I had Rap be a buffer, because I was like, I could give. So I gave Fina the other items to buff Justin, and then I had Rap also buffing Justin. So Justin was end up like level 5 in like 2 turns.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I did, and then once Justin was fully buffed and he was gonna go attack and be superhero, the other 2 characters I would either buff Rap or I would just leave them and just having them do their special moves that already did a bunch of damage.
Oh, I want to talk about we have to talk about the ending at some point. I need you to.
Oh yeah, the start of the next podcast, we are taking like 20 minutes of that start, and we are talking about the end of the game, because I will have this beaten probably by the end of this day or tomorrow.
There's a string of bosses, and like there's one boss that is so much more difficult than the final boss. I wanted to talk about that boss, and it's funny because Mystery, he's one of my usual viewers, and a member of my community. He actually was like, hey, when you get to the end, like, I want to talk to you about a boss. And that boss was the hardest boss in the game by far. I'm sure there's harder bosses in the secret dungeons, although one of the secret dungeons wasn't too bad. I will say there was a difficulty spike, which was really cool with the secret boss that I fought. But like, I assume the other two, like that's exciting. Like you have some extra stuff you can do. One thing I didn't like that once you beat the game, there is no like, it's just done. You go back, like you can reload, but you reload your save from your last save before you beat the game. And they don't like carry anything over or anything like that. So that was kind of, I was like, eh. And
yeah, I think we're a little bit spoiled with RPG games like Star Ocean and stuff like that, where they have multiple endings, so they let you do that with like the New Game Plus sort of segment of it. Whereas like a lot of the older ones, they were just like over. Like earlier Final Fantasy games were like that. Grandia's like that. Lunar wasn't. Lunar did do the where you could save after. I think.
Lunar, it was like you could save after, but you couldn't do anything else. I'm talking about like like for example, I know Tales of Arise does this, and that's again, it's a new game, obviously. But Tales of Arise is like after you beat the game, you can like basically go back and do the extra stuff. So it's basically like a save acknowledging that you beat the game, but you can still go back and do extra stuff if you load up your save.
I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, kind of like the Star Ocean series have that too, where like Star Ocean 1 and 2, because they have like an optional dungeon they want you to go and do. So they have that too, where you can like load it up and go back and do those things, but you have the game cleared. Okay. Okay, yeah. So see, I think that it would have definitely benefited from something like that, because it does have optional dungeons. That's something that I was really shocked to see that Grandia had. I wasn't expecting it to have. And and you're right, it does have 3, because it is alluding to the third one now where I am in the game. So it's talking about there is like I'm coming up to where the third one would be.
Yes.
So it's kind of like hinting at it a little bit through NPC dialogue. So yeah, so there are like 3, like 2 actual things, and then like you said, like a room kind of idea. And so like, yeah, I think it would have had like that little extra little bit so that you could go back, but instead of doing like what I'm doing, where I'm saving it just before where those areas are, so that I could go and do them after I beat the game, or if I ever want to play around in the optional dungeons. But did you want to talk a little bit about the one optional dungeon you did? Because you got one.
Yeah, it was interesting. So I went into 2 of the optional dungeons. One of them I explored like the first floor, and then I was like, oh, this seems like it's gonna be a real dungeon. I don't want to do this right now. Like I'm on a time crunch. So then I went to the other one, and it was basically just a haunted house. And like there was like some haunted sword that I had to get. But it's cool. It was like a couple floors, and it didn't really feel like a dungeon. There were some cool items, and the boss was actually really, really tough. Because the boss had lightning magic, and I had not experienced that yet. So the boss had lightning magic, and the way that the lightning magic works, it has pretty big range. So the strats for it, and this is something they don't do. I wish they would talk about this a little bit more, because like the save points had hints, which was cool, because they were gameplay related hints, or like hints that made Grandia sort of like they explained the things that are like Grandia specific. One of the things I didn't like was that they didn't really talk about how you can move characters around. So there's like a defend option that you can do, where you can basically choose to like stay in place and defend to get less damage, or you can do like evade. So
I didn't know you could do that. Yeah, I've never had to defend before.
Exactly. So this boss like was giving me a run for my money, and I was like, okay, I need to figure out a way to like break up my party, because it was the case that
you can do that in defending.
So defend allows you to do evasion, And evasion, you can pick a spot on, as long as your character can move to that spot. Like, if you move too far away, I'm guessing, like, they'll get stopped in the middle of it. But if your movement is high enough, which when I was playing through, I really valued movement. So I actually sacrificed some defense on, like, certain shoes to have as much movement as I could. So, like, I was able to basically say, okay, instead of having everybody group up, I'm going to actually form a square around this boss. And then they can only, like, they had a move that did target everyone, but all of their other moves were like targeting a group close together. They were ranged attacks instead of all team attacks. And then one move they had was just like a super powerful move that just hit one person. So I basically separated my team so that way I could have my healer healing, and then like my like AoE attack, like my range, my DPS from Rap, and then have Justin and Milda sort of in close on the boss. And that was actually how I beat the boss. But
oh, geez. See, that's blowing my mind. So I didn't realize you could do that, and I had been cursing. Again, I should have read the manual. Literally, it's probably explained.
Oh yeah, the manual. The
manual's gonna actually say it, but this is me and Polly just thinking she could like brute force figure things out. And don't read the instructions. I'm bad at that, especially for RPG games. And so there's a move you get later on called Halnado, where it attacks you and your party, but it doesn't actually damage your party, it just separates your party. So I've been using that move to get out of AoE attacks by separating my party and I could have just
Oh, okay. Yeah, there was another, like, there were a couple of different options that you could do. Like, one of the cool things you can do is, like, you can defend on, if you don't think you're gonna, like, so if an enemy is like really close to being able to attack you, if you go into, there's like it's an hourglass, I think, or not a magnifying glass. If you can go on the magnifying glass, you can actually, I think it's called look. You can actually see who they're going to be targeting, and then if you aren't going to be able to like interrupt their attack soon enough, you can defend. That way, they don't interrupt your attack. You don't lose a turn and take the full damage. So there's definitely some cool stuff. I'm pulling it up now to get the exacts. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was called Look, and Look will actually, like, on the bottom bar, it'll highlight the square of the person that you're actually that is going to be targeted. And if it's everybody, then it'll target everyone. But you can defend. That way, it doesn't put you in a spot where you're kind of just like, hey, what's going on? So I thought that was pretty cool.
That would have been so much. See, look at KJ actually like learning gameplay mechanics, and then there's Polly, the fake girl gamer here in this thing, like just brute forcing it, trying to figure it out as she goes. And yeah, so there's a move called Halnado. That's what I kept using to like break up my party. Is that I just send this tornado. It would damage the enemy. It would smack all my party members in opposite directions, and I'm like, okay, there we go. Now I'm not in AoE range anymore. And it's like, yeah, Anno makes a great point. The artist versus the engineer.
I guess you could say that. Yeah, I'm trying to get to a battle so I can actually show it. But like, yeah, it was the case where you could it's like look and defend. Look, definitely, yeah. I'm not gonna load it up. But look lets you see who's gonna be targeted, and then you can either defend, or you can, again, like, if you defend and want to move characters around, it'll basically like pick a different point on the map. Like, you can scroll through the points that are on the map.
Okay. That you know what? That might help me for my last 5 hours of gameplay.
But it might. Honestly, probably not. But I think it would have been more helpful earlier in Disc 2 / earlier in the game.
Okay.
At this point, like, everything just...
There's only one boss I died to, though. So this, like, the big guy. Okay, so when you're going through like the underground ruins, and just before the big plot reveal of Fina happens, you fight this boss who has a boomerang, an axe, and then the guy, all as separate enemies you can attack. I died to that a couple times. Like he wiped me with his like he would smack me with the axe, throw the boomerang, and it hit everybody because everybody was clustered. And so I did a little bit of leveling, got that Halnado move, which is funny because I just literally spontaneously got it. I was not trying for it because I didn't know that was what would unlock. Got that with Fina, and then went back into that boss, and I just kept separating them so the axe would only hit one character at a time, and I ended up beating it because I didn't have to worry
Oh
about
my
heal
goodness.
all. And I'm just like, because Justin was my only heal all at that point. Fina didn't even have a heal all at that point. So it's like,
Oh,
and I had very little items that could heal all because they stopped selling them and I forgot which
okay.
towns to buy them in. So I was just like, I don't remember where the heal all items are anymore.
I,
And so yeah, and then because you have to like, in order for me to go back out to buy items, I had to backtrack all the way through the dungeon. So I was like, no way, I'm just
yep.
gonna level a little bit and see. And then I ended up beating that boss finally, but that was the only one I've ever struggled with.
Went
In
to I went twice. Once was actually, this was probably the worst. I didn't realize, it was on the wall, on the big wall, like at the end of the world. There was a treasure chest, and there were like these 4 bird things flying around the treasure chest, and
okay,
they clipped my party, and it was at the time the party was just it was Justin, Fina, and Sue, and
oh
they
no,
clipped the party. I wasn't healed, and they ambushed me, and I just didn't get a chance to attack.
oh no, I hate
And
those
I
ambushes.
was like, that's the first time I wipe in this game. And then actually no, I wiped a few. I wiped 3 times because I also wiped to the secret boss. I wiped to the secret boss. I had no idea how to beat him. Like it took me a couple of tries to beat him.
Oh geez, okay,
That was the one I was like, oh my goodness. But in terms of actual gameplay, I don't think I wiped any other time.
that's fair. Yeah, I didn't wipe to any regular enemies, but I was also like healing all the time. After like
Yeah.
every single battle, I
Yep.
was like, because I wanted to level it up. So I'm just like, this is just an easier way to level this up. So as soon as you got the magic spell for healing, I was like, just spam heal, spam heal. Something we didn't talk about a little bit was part of the gameplay mechanics. I liked how your party follows you and doesn't just disappear inside you, which I always found a little bit weird with RPG games where like they
Mm-hmm.
go like it's just your character running around the screen. I like that they had a trail, but that also meant that if the enemies, oh my god, when you I
It was so
hate
frustrating.
when you're like trying to run around an enemy because you're like, okay, I've fought a million of these. I'm already
Yep.
OP. Like, I don't want to fight this thing. And you're trying to run away, but your last party member in the little train just taps them, and it's ambush because
Yep.
it's the back of your party. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I get ambushed so much.
If they touch the back of any party member, it's an ambush, which
Yeah,
doesn't make sense. Like
I don't
even
like that.
Justin could be facing them, and they'll hit Fina on the side, and it's an
Ambush.
ambush.
Yeah. So it's like anytime you're like trying to, because it's not a RPG where like you run around and it's a random encounter. You actually see the enemies on the screen, but they make it like a lot of the times really hard to avoid them, I guess on
Mm-hmm.
purpose. But like, and then it's just sometimes when you're just like to a point where you're like, I'm too OP, I'm one-shotting these creatures, I just want to run away, like run around them. And I'm like just hitting me at the tail end. Then they get an ambush, and suddenly I'm like half HP before I start. I'm like, oh my goodness, I
And to
can't
me,
even get attack yet.
the worst part was in the forest where Gadwin's house is. Like that was the worst part because you lose Sue, and then you fight Gadwin, and then it's just you and Fina. And from that point on, it's like, okay, now I'm backtracking. It's just me and Fina. We've already sent Sue off. We just lost Gadwin, and now I have to leave here. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness!
and we had to fight a boss, just the two of us too.
Yep.
Like you end up having to fight a boss with just you and Fina, and you're like, okay, this just screws up my entire strategy life
Yeah,
because Fina didn't have any healing magic, and neither did Justin. So I'm like,
I got lucky that I gave Fina healing magic, but my problem was Justin and actually Sue and Justin had all my resurrection potions, and that boss targets Justin specifically, like the boss at the end of disc 1. So I
oh
actually
right, I
I
forgot
soloed
it did
that boss
that.
with Fina because Justin just kept like I was like Justin's just gonna keep getting pulled in and keep getting attacked. I was like, once he dies, he's dead. So I did as much damage with him as I could, and then I just sat there with Fina in the back, just casting magic and healing her magic, and then casting magic because
Oh,
they
smart.
only
Because
had
did you have any resurrection items? Because I was down to only one each.
my resurrection items were all on Justin and Sue. So when Sue left the party,
Oh,
they
so
put them
you
all into my they put them
bag
all into
instead of
my bag.
your. Oh
I forgot to
no.
grab them because I was too busy worried about leveling Justin and Sue up, or Justin and Fina up with and Gadwin's experience stuff. So I didn't have the potions, and then only Justin had them. So when Justin died, I was like, well, it looks like I'm soloing this with Fina. And that actually happened to me another time. The boss that I said was the hardest boss I felt I had to fight. That boss, I ended up soloing with Justin at the end because it was like you're gonna when you get to that fight. Oh my goodness, it's like the big bad guy. He's not the
Okay.
yeah. When you get to the big bad guy, let me know because I would love to watch you do that fight because that fight was miserable. Like
I'll
I would
switch
do
to
that
my
fight. I was like,
PC and I will like stream it in Discord for you.
yeah,
I'll do
I
that
was
too.
like, this fight sucks. Like there, oh my goodness, it was rough. I did it first try. Justin had like 100 HP left, and it was a struggle. I used so many resurrections, and it was bad. It was real bad.
You know what? Tomorrow night I could do that. Like I could stream in the Discord the last bit of Grandia 1. And like you'll probably be the only one watching because nobody will watch spoilers.
That's
But
true.
I
Yeah.
could
No,
stream like the last bit that I need to do
yeah.
for
If
Grandia 1.
you play it, whenever you play it, let me know. I will definitely come hang out because yeah,
and see you can see how my rap is my buffer. Just see how
and I can also show you like how I did everything because I do have a save right before the end. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was fun. It just yeah, that definitely made
But
me
at
sweat.
least it was like the like almost end boss that you did that on. That makes sense that it would be at least a struggle.
This
Um
is definitely one of those games that like has a lot of bosses at the end of the game, kind of like a gauntlet, but like they don't go in the right order in terms of difficulty. That's what I'll say. They don't.
Okay. All right. See, I found Final Fantasy 8 did the same thing for me. Certain
Yeah.
bosses I found way harder
Mhm.
than the last bit of it. So it's like that throws me off sometimes because like
Yeah.
you fight these bosses and stuff like that and you're expecting the hardest one to be at the very end, but the hardest one was somewhere in the middle. But
Yep.
I also think it's like just how we play and stuff like that too. Maybe other people found the end boss harder. Who knows? But like I feel like maybe with the older
I'd be really
ones.
surprised. I would be really
I
surprised.
mean, there is the Star Ocean 2 end boss that I never thought would be like it's a struggle, but I never thought it was a struggle thing until I saw you do a first playthrough of it and you went in and completely blind and didn't want any hints or whatever, so you missed certain characters that would have made that a little bit more. You missed your other DPS more or less. And so like and then watching you go through that and watching the struggle, I was like, wow, he is hard. He is so hard. And I was like, because I would beat him like by the third try or whatever. You
Mhm.
swapped out the thing, but I had two DPSs, so that made sense.
Yeah.
But
No.
yeah, it's fun. Like in one way, it's fun when you get that really challenging boss. I'm just really shocked to hear the Grandio one is not the very end one. Like
Yeah. It
especially
was.
with
You'll see. You'll see. Like it's. Yeah. It's weird. It's really weird.
good to
The
know.
way they.
Also, I laughed really hard at Peach's comment, and I had to be very like careful not to super laugh. But like, yeah, that was funny.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, sometimes it's a thing. But yeah. So over like so we've talked about the plot a little bit. Like we didn't go too heavy into the plot just because of spoilers and stuff. But like we talked about the plot, like the overarching plot. We talked about the characters. We've talked about gameplay, story, OST, cutscenes, all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
So, your overall like what would be like your overall like rating of Grandia 1, and what would you like what would be your recommendation for people if you think they would like it or not?
Would
Like,
say I would give it like an 8.5, 8.6, 8.7, somewhere around there. I thought it was really good. I thought I love the customizability of characters. I love the I do really enjoy the system, like the battle systems and things. Like I think it's really unique. I think it's different. Like it's very, very different. It's not your traditional just like I attack, you attack, I attack, you attack kind of battle system.
yeah.
I thought the OST was phenomenal. I thought in terms of a game that's linear, they did it well. I think that like it definitely the party splits definitely slowed the game down a little bit for me. That's something I would have been better off without like. And I still don't think you're like fairly compensated for characters being removed from the party. But I think the pacing was still pretty good. Like it didn't seem like I was worried when it was like, oh, we're gonna go to the end of the world, and then you got over the wall. I was like, is this game gonna be too short? And then it started to really drag on a little bit, and I was like, oh, disc 1 is really long. Like, is this game gonna be like a Tales game? I was like, when is disc 1 finally gonna end? But they actually wrapped everything up really nicely, and I think once you start to have your consistent party of Justin Fina rap in disc 2, things start to be a lot more fluid and it stops feeling as slow. And then like you get to a point where there's more party splits and it's like, okay, it starts to slow down a little bit and feel a little bit more daunting. But overall, I think it was a great game. I think it's funny because it very much gives me Skies of Arcadia vibe. Like,
Okay.
in the sense that it kind of does a very similar thing. Like, you go on and it's like, the premise of Skies of Arcadia is like, hey, you can tell like there's this evil like army empire, but like, and they have their motives, and at first it's just like the main character Vice, he's like, yo, I want to be a sky pirate, like I want to do these things, and he's very, very, him and Justin are very similar. Like anybody that loves, what I would say is anyone that loves Grandia 1 or Skies of Arcadia should play the opposite, because I think you would really enjoy the other ones.
Okay.
And the systems are different, but I think in terms of like story-wise, there's very similar things. And by the end of both of them, you're kind of trying to save the world from evil maniacs. So it's like they give a very similar feel. But yeah, I thought this game was really, really solid. I think small things that could be tweaked. Again, camera angle, compass, inventory system, and then like the party splits kind of slowing things down.
Yeah, like I agree with you. I think mine would be like I haven't beaten it yet, so this might change because I haven't seen like the ending and stuff. But it felt like disc 1 was a game and disc 2 almost. Especially with like Sue being in your party for like pretty well the entire disc 1 and then leaving towards like the very, very end. And then you're like sailing off into the sunset. It very much felt like disc 1 was one game and disc 2 was like the sequel to it almost. And
Okay.
then like I definitely think the party splits, like you said, were not when Sue is removed, you do not get back what you should have. I can understand with Godwin, Milda, and Guido because they're not in your party very long. So them being like 1/3 and you're getting like a level for their book, okay, whatever, that's fine because they weren't there very long. But Sue was there for an entire half of the game. And like I thought you should have got a 1-for-1 pretty well with her. So like you get the magic abilities. If you're gonna remove her, and not have removed or something, you should have got like a 1-for-1. And like so by the end of disc 1, like I liked the game. I was like around a 7.5 feeling of it and stuff like that. I like the mechanics, stuff like that. But I was upset with the whole like Sue thing. I think she should have been removed out of the party sooner, or you given more for it. Because I was messaging you and I'm just like, this is all I get. This is all I get, and I was so upset
And I
about
actually
it.
went through that. Like you were live when that happened to me, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, I just
Yeah,
lost.
I was streaming Golden Sun, and I remember you being outraged about it, but then I was like,
Mhm.
I wasn't there yet, so, like, I didn't remember, and that's why I kept telling like, I was like, "I think there's something you get," but then I didn't realize at how little you got back. I thought you got for a one for it. So and then you, like, conclude with Justin and Vina or whatever, they sail off into the sunset to the end of the world kind of thing, into the water, and then it's like disc 1 is over. And then it loads up disc 2 and you've, like, landed on shore, blah, 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 blah. But
Yeah.
it's like and then it starts again, and it's a little bit darker tone, but then you get your permanent party member, which is Rap. And then the 4th one I've never really, like I just, like since the beginning of the game, you kinda had 3 party members and a 4th kinda came in and then left. So I
Revolving
just
door
always
almost.
suspect the 4th one never being permanent. So I'm just like, okay, it's just to help a little bit with the gameplay, a little bit with the battles and stuff, and the boss battles to give you that 4th extra character. It was kind of like items and stuff like that on them. So I'm like, all right, whatever. And so by that point, so this too, I ended up enjoying more because I was like really more into it. I was more like accustomed to things. Sue was already long gone. I didn't have any expectation of losing Rap at any point, even though like he falls down like I don't know 3 cliffs, and you're just like, okay, bye. And like party
Yeah.
splits, right? There's a lot of party splits. And
Mhm.
so I was like, oh no, he's coming back. It's fine. They didn't do a big sequence of him. He's gonna come back. He'll just dust himself off and be like, yo, I'm back. And it's like, you know, fighty mentality. So I'm like, all right, that's fine. And so I liked it more. So by where I am in the game, and I haven't beaten it yet, I'd actually be up to the 8s. So like I'd be an 8 in there, depending on how the ending goes, it'd probably be an 8.5 by the end. So it's funny how like I had a sequence where I was more like around the 7. I would give it a 7 at the beginning for disc 1, but then disc 2 everything just kind of flowed better, and I understood the pacing a bit better, and I just like
Mhm.
everything has been going really well in this too. Not for the characters, but for this for me, and enjoying everything. I definitely would go with uh like an 8 right now, and depending on the 8 ending. If the ending is really good and I really like the ending, it'd definitely be an 8.5 for me. And that's not I didn't even get to do any of the optional stuff yet, so but yeah, overall this game, it's like I would highly recommend it to people who like the older JRPGs. If you are a fan of JRPGs in the Super Nintendo, PlayStation, and PlayStation 2 era, I think you'd really like this game. Also one thing we didn't talk about that I wanted to mention is the art. I really like the pixel art of the characters.
I definitely
And
agree.
yeah, I definitely like that, but I also really enjoyed the anime cutscenes with the facial expressions because it was done in pixel graphics with like kind of a 3D pseudo background, which is
Mhm.
fine. I like that because Star Ocean did the same thing. So I like that kind of look. But then they did like when they're talking, they have these like little anime portraits that cycle through depending on how they're feeling. And it made it more immersive where pixel sprites rather than like little emote reactions like Star Ocean does, you can't really have that same like almost like really like seeing that they're crying. In pixel sprites, it's really hard to see like they're actually crying and their emotion and stuff. So the little portraits I thought really brought that in, and something Star Ocean the remake of it or the remaster of it for the PSP did was do that. Their dialogues changed to having anime portraits, just like
Mhm.
Grandia has. So it's a little bit more immersive that way because you get kind of like pulled into the character a little bit more. I really like the art of this one. Like I like the pixel graphics were really charming. I like the anime look to it and like the anime of the character designs and stuff like that. Like I really like the art of it. I'm not sure if it really mattered one way or another to you, KJ, but I thought it was just really charming. I don't know,
It had a nice charm. I
graphically.
think it was one
Yeah.
of those things like,
It didn't
again,
look like other ones.
yeah,
So,
it
yeah.
didn't feel it didn't feel like I didn't look at it and say, "Oh, I've seen this before." That was
Yeah.
my biggest
Yeah.
thing, and that's usually for me is like as long as it looks unique enough, I'm okay with it. Like I'm not gonna sort of analyze it a ton. But again, that's
Yeah.
like
Yep.
that's the artist in you versus the engineer in me.
Yeah.
That's really what that comes down to. But yeah, honestly, I think that like the pixels, like the pixel art, it was like, oh, this is unique, this is cool, and I can see, like you said, the anime pictures and everything. With stuff like that, like I enjoy having those because you do, especially if they do show emotion in that. Like I don't know, I love the Suikoden games, and those games have like the pixel, like the character portraits and stuff like that.
Oh,
Star
that's
Ocean,
awesome. Okay.
Star Ocean 1, I played First Departure R, so that also had that. So I
Yeah,
thought
because
those
it was the remake of the Star Ocean one,
yep,
so like they added that stuff in, which is
exactly.
yeah. I like that a lot. And honestly, I showed KJ this. There was a scene where like you're like chucked through the sky and like Fina is upright, so her portrait is upright, and then Justin is like flying upside down, so his portrait is upside
Yep.
down. And I
Yes.
laughed really hard at that tiny detail because it's like that was so clever that I was just dying because he's like angry, but he's like upside down because he's upside down on the screen. And I thought that was such a clever little like they did
It's a
so
nice
many
touch.
little things like that where it's like, okay, I noticed what you did and I like that. Like
Yeah.
it had the game is full of that. Is there any other moments you could think of playing Grandia where they had these like little moments in it where you're like, okay, that's hilarious. Like the Mildred and her husband being the bull.
Oh,
I died. I laughed so and she's like, "Darling!" And she, like, jumps in his arms and they're kissing, and I'm like, "Oh my
she
god."
said. So what killed me about that is she kept talking about Darlin, and I'm like, okay, that's
I
just
thought
what she's
it was
referring
a
to her
nickname.
husband. No, that is his actual name. Darlin, Derlin, and Dorlin. The
The
three.
3 wise men, but they look like giant bulls. And,
Yep.
like, chibi bulls, so, like, round features with big eyes, like, full on bull. Like,
Yeah,
oh my
that
goodness.
was. And again, it just the game has that sort of like goofy charm throughout the entirety of it, regardless
Yeah.
of how serious things are. Like it still has that charm, and it's still like, oh, this is adorable. Like this is something that like even though it's super, it starts to get dark. It's like, oh, this is dark, but you can also see that
We
there's some other things in here that are
we
like that's
keep
why.
bringing up, but that's what her husband looks like. He's a giant bull and he's and he's chibi and
Yeah.
he's yeah, like look at him. That's her hubby. And she kept referring to him as Darlin, but that's literally his name. There's
Yeah.
Darlin, Derlin, and Dorlin. And it's like, okay. But
Yep.
since we were talking about that specific scene, I remembered the screenshot I sent you, and I went literally my
Yep.
caption to KJ when I got to that was like, "What the fuck is this game?"
Yep. And
And it,
there are definitely moments of that. It's like,
yeah,
what is going on? Like,
yeah,
why
like
is
the
this?
constipation discussion.
Yep.
Like when you sometimes when you like conclude like a little story bit, you can like have a dinner before you sleep at the inn, and you can converse with your party members. And I found there was a lot of like little bit of dialogue in there that just kind of were like it was just little bits in there where just like okay because you learn a little bit about Justin's dad and his mom was like a pirate and his
Yeah,
dad was an
that was
adventurer and
weird.
that's how they met is that
Yep.
he ended up on her pirate ship and like
Yep.
you're just like oh shit so
And it's
there's
also
like
funny because like you don't think about it, but like that's effectively how Justin and Fina end up meeting.
yeah kinda yeah you end up being on the ship and having to deal with
That's actually
the
kind of
ghost ship
funny.
yeah
Yeah,
like
that's wild. I didn't even think about that.
yeah, so like it is one of those like situations where I'm just like there's little bits and pieces, right? So they throw it into like the and that's kind of something that you would have over supper. You would share like little like dialogue
Hmm.
bits and stuff like that over supper and you're eating your meal and then you go to sleep for the night and you start your next
Yeah.
day. And like I liked that aspect even though like eating food like, one thing I thought was strange, and I don't know if you ever figured out why they said this, but some of the items, they would say, "Heal your party member 40, but bitter." Do you know if that ever mattered? Like, there's bitter, tasty, yummy.
I think those were just like I thought that they were just like describing the like they just wanted you to know the quality of it. I don't actually
Yeah,
know.
I always kept thinking it would allude to something where it like made your character move faster or something like that, but it never alluded to that stuff. And then they kept having the supper meals where you would have the discussions, and I thought, is eating a meal like gonna like raise your attack power or something? But it never had anything like that, and I felt like that was like slight miss opportunity, because it had the description in there. They could have just like literally, but again, these are super tiny little things. It's a incredibly charming game. It has a lot of these like little moments where you're just like, oh my god. And like Anna will attest because I just constantly be like, what the fuck is this game? Like that's literally what I must have said that a million times during this gameplay because there's just those little bits like her and her husband that I thought was a nickname. She's like, oh, she's just calling him Darlin because that's her
Yep.
Darlin, and then it's his name. And he's a giant bull and he's cutesy, and I'm like, oh. And then she's like, oh, I can't leave with your party because last time I left, Darlin like wasted away to nothing. He's skinny. And then literally Rap's like, that's skinny? And I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's wild.
You don't say that. You don't say, like Rap was just like super savage about it. And I was like,
Rap Rap doesn't care. It's great.
Like, so Mighty Merlin is mentioning that if the characters had a preferred taste, it would heal them more. I never actually paid attention.
Yeah, I never paid attention to that. I would just heal people and like I also didn't really use items much.
Yeah, same. Like up until I lost Sue and I didn't have a healer anymore because I didn't have Fina with any healing magic. I was using items a little bit more then until you got Rap, and then I gave Fina because I was like, okay, I'm not getting a healer back. So I got Rap in and I felt him more of like a buff or debuff kind of character and another attacker. So I was just like, okay, I'll make Fina the healer. But Justin had, because I wanted the ice moves that you could learn. It looked like as soon as I taught him water, I was like, oh, but I kept getting healing and I was just like, Justin, no, you're my attacker, not my healer.
You had to mix water and wind. That's how you got the ice move. Because I didn't actually do it much, but I did get some spells with Fina doing water and wind together.
Yeah, because you didn't use wind very much, right? In your gameplay.
I only used wind with Fina, and it was later game. So, like, later game, I ended up unlocking, like, lightning and some of the ice spells because I was using Fina. But, like, you also, like, the party splits kind of will sometimes take Fina out the party. Yeah. So that actually ended up being slightly problematic at some points too. But
yeah, when you're just in solo there for a little bit, I was just like, and we're gonna run away from the enemies. And every time I hit an enemy, I do his like ultimate magic move and then just keep going. Like just wipe them out, keep going, just run away. Like no, but when you're just Justin, it's so much easier to dodge enemies. Holy crap! I was like running circles around them. Like so much easier when you're just Justin to do that because they have the trail of characters, right? And that's something Grandia 2 does. I can't remember if Grandia 3 does it, but Grandia 2 has the trail of characters. I do believe, if I'm remembering correctly. It has been a while since I played Grandia 2. I think they had the trail of characters. But they didn't have it as quite as like you would get ambushed every time your last party member in the party would get hit. So but yeah, being just Justin and running around things was like so much easier to dodge like moves and stuff like that. But but yeah, so yeah, all in all, I honestly I really like this game. I'm glad that we picked this one first.
Yeah, no, same. I think it's a good
because I think it was a good pace. If I just didn't get so busy with that con and just had an extra day or two, or just an extra day, it looks like all I needed was one extra day, and I would have been fine. But we'll do it after. We'll attack it to the start of the
It'll
next
be
podcast.
fine.
But like, but KJ here like beat it like Monday or something, and he's like, what do I play now? Because we want to try to play these games that we do for the podcast around the same time. We want to at least try to start anyway. Around the same time.
It wasn't out yet. So
yeah, and the one we're doing next, which we'll announce in just a little bit. It's not out yet, or it wasn't out yet. So it was like, so KJ had this time frame of like a little less than a week of where he beat Grandia off stream. We can't start our next podcast game yet because it hadn't been out. And then he was playing Valkyrie Profile on stream, so can't really do that off stream. So he's like in this in between, like, what do I play? And
I didn't end up making progress in anything. Like,
yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna start this, and then I would turn it on and I'd be like, I don't really want to play this. Then I was like, I'm gonna start this, and then I'm like, actually, I don't want to play this either. Like, there were just so many things that I told myself I was gonna play, and then I didn't. And I basically just wait. Like, it was nice. It was good that I had like interviews and stuff, so that kind of took up some of the time. And like, I streamed Wednesday, I streamed Wednesday, Thursday. I had interviews on Friday, so really it was like Tuesday rolled around, and I was like, all right, like. When I beat this on Tuesday, I was like, I don't know what to play, but it ended up working out. But
yeah,
this Tuesday, I'm gonna be playing a lot of the next game. So
that's great because then that gives me Monday night I beat Grandia, and then Tuesday because technically I do stream Tuesday. But Tuesday I am totally fine with like maybe starting the game in like the morning before I work. And then so that I get a little bit of a start on it because Wednesday is when I'll be able to play. But then Wednesday you're streaming, so it ends up working out that we're pretty well starting at the same time. So that works out
Wednesday and Thursday you'll have time to do it. Like I'll catch up on Friday. Like I'll probably fall behind Wednesday, Thursday, and catch up on Friday. So
yeah exactly. And we have because I think we'll do like we haven't like set in stone. That was the one thing I forgot to ask you before that is when we'll do the next one. But I'm thinking probably like the. Oh yeah, the 28th, right? Or was it?
Yeah, I think we did. I think we said the 28th.
Yeah, because I'm visiting you that week, so the week.
Yeah, we either said the 21st or the 28th. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, but either one is like towards the end of the month, so we got a good chunk of time. But
yeah, and like I said, I've heard it's a shorter game, so it shouldn't be too bad. I think it was like I can check.
Yeah.
Have to be.
So,
yeah.
So any other thoughts for Grandia 1? Do you got any other things that we didn't touch base on, or any other?
No, I think we kind of hit everything. I think everything that we were, everything I wanted to cover was definitely covered. I think, Grandia is a solid game. Like that's all I can say. It's funny because
it was worth the play for sure.
Yeah, Peach was like, "Oh, a game KJ doesn't own. I think a game store close to me has it. I might go out and scoop it up today, just to have it because it is a good game."
Yeah, and so, like Grandia, I think is great to own in your collection by far. Like I have the digital copy of the remaster, which is great. So I don't have to like really like sweat about playing my copy of my game anymore and stuff like that, and just kind of keep it the edition it is in. And I think it's definitely a really solid JRPG. Highly recommend it for anybody who likes. Honestly, even if you were like more of like an current age, like the battle system is a little bit more advanced than I found a lot of like JRPGs back then were. Like the odd one was. Pardon?
I said it's not a lot. It's not like a lot of like Final Fantasy games, right?
No,
like
exactly. Where it's a little bit more of an action-y, turn-based kind of idea, which is kind of a little bit fun. And like I honestly 8 out of 10 for me right now. At where I am in the game, it's probably going to be an 8.5 if the ending ends kind of the way I'm picturing it to end. And so like 8.5, 6 or 7 or whatever for KJ. So like solid 8 for both of us, even though we played differently. Went into this game very differently. That was kind of funny. Definitely recommend it for anybody who's listening to this or watching this podcast. Definitely solid JRPG, worth the play, even worth the stream. Honestly, like it's not a very long game. You could probably beat it in like a month on stream if anybody wanted to stream it. It's a good stream game.
A couple people were streaming it for this. Like I know Ruku, who was in chat earlier. I think they had to run off, and also Jack Not Jack. They were both streaming it, and Jack's pretty far into it. Jack is, I think, like a good portion through disc 2. So, But yeah, no, I agree. I think it would have been. It definitely was. It was definitely a good stream game, and it's definitely made me like. I have Grandia for the obviously in the collection, but also for the Dreamcast, and I plan on playing it for the Dreamcast. And it definitely has made me think like, hey, this would be solid. So I'm
And I
excited.
think Grandia 2, because Grandia 2 is a little longer than Grandia 1, definitely. But I
Mhm.
think it'll be a solid stream game for you. I think,
Okay.
given your reaction with Grandia 1, I think you'll really like Grandia.
Cool. Good to know.
Grandia 3, I still can't really speak on because that is just maybe that'll be a game we play for a podcast at some point, maybe for this
Yeah,
podcast.
I
Is
have it.
that because you have it, I have it, and then if you stream Grandia, you don't have to play them in order. Fun fact about the
Yeah.
Grandia series. But if you do end up wanting to stream Grandia 2 before that, then we could even make 3 because I only played a little bit of it. I didn't get very far, and I think Grandia 3 is 2 discs as well for the PS2. I think, if I remember correctly, I think it's 2 discs. I can't 100% remember. But I only played a little bit of it, so I can't really speak on it. Grandia 2 I got super into. And now playing Grandia 1, I can see some of the things that they carry over to it, but they still make it its own thing. And I think I was
Oh,
more immersed in the story for Grandia 2 than Grandia 1.
huh.
Yeah,
Good to know.
so I think that's the only like thing that I would say jumps out at me as being a little bit stronger in the second game, but a lot of the other stuff is like solid from Grandia 1 now that I've played it. Yeah. All right. So, with that, we're gonna wrap up the Grandia talk about things. Again, we will talk a little bit about the ending and the end of the game and the like spoilery character and like a 10 of 15-minute of the next podcast, just to kind of conclude that because like KJ really wants to talk about things and I'll probably want to do it too,
You're gonna
honestly, even
talk
just to
about it.
see
You're
how the
100% gonna want to talk about it.
yeah, so we'll save that because I'm like just like 4 or 5 hours away from beating the
Yeah.
game. So we'll save that for the beginning of our next podcast. But KJ, why don't you tell our
I
viewers
was gonna
on what
defer
our
to
next
you.
game and
I was gonna defer to you. Your stream. I'm deferring to you.
All right, all right. Well, then that means when you host this is that's you get the
Fine.
lead into the next one. All right, let's do it. So, KJ and I have talked about it, and we have picked our second game, for our podcast. And so we are going to be starting Live Alive. Is it Live Alive or Live Alive?
I think it's alive.
Yeah, I think it's Live Alive. So Live Alive, we're going to be starting it this upcoming week.
Mhm.
I know it just came out on Friday. So I know a lot of people are going to be playing it in the community. So if you get it beaten in a month, maybe that way KJ will put the podcast on the 28th of August, giving us the maximum amount of time of our
Okay.
viewers to also have caught up.
I'll have to check. I might have a convention that day, but
Oh, okay, okay. So
there's a
it
retro game. There's a retro game convention a couple states away, or a state
oh,
away. So I
okay.
might go to that. But yeah, we
Okay,
can
okay.
definitely figure that out.
We're gonna confirm it in both of our discords. So we have like we talk about our podcast and everything in our discords. We'll confirm the date. It's either gonna be the 21st of August or the
Mhm.
28th of August, depending on if KJ has a convention that day. Or if you're talking about your retro one that you went to last year,
Yes, that's
uh
the exact same one.
that's
Yep.
the weekend after. So that's the weekend of the second, third, and fourth, I
No,
thought.
no, no.
But
It's the one before. It's
oh,
the
is it? Okay, okay, okay. So that
yeah. It's the
interferes with that. So
27th one.
maybe because you're the one hosting it, we'll do it on the 21st.
Okay, that works.
Yeah. Because that's also before I come visit. So I'm
Yes.
leaving the Monday morning to come visit you. So that works out. So maybe we'll do it on the 21st then, for the podcast. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I
we're
just
gonna
looked it
be
up.
playing Live Alive. I'm going in completely blind on this game. So I think KJ's seen a few things about it, but I haven't
Too
seen
much.
any of it. Any of it at all. I literally bought the game for this podcast. And I got it on the Switch. My copy will be in sometime tomorrow, so I'll be Grandia tomorrow, so it'll work out that KJ and I will start on Tuesday. We might do some Discord streams of it. We might not. But we're definitely that is the game for August. So if you guys have a copy of the game or you want to get the game and play it, and then we're gonna talk about it during our podcast at the end of August, you are absolutely welcome to do so. It looks like I saw a little bit of it from when I bought it, and it looks kind of interesting, and I'm really excited about it. So
Very, very. So I rated into P-Stone um, last week or this past week, and I saw P-Stone was playing it. I saw very, very little bit of it, but I'm really excited. It looks like it's very much done in like the 2D, 3D Octopath uh, style. So very, very excited for that. Yeah, I think it was like 3 days ago. So that'll be really cool. I'm really excited to dive into it. It should be good. And again, I've heard it's a relatively short game.
yeah,
So it might
yeah.
be the case that we'll have like, it might be the case that we'll be able to kind of go through it and then plan things and kind of go from there. So maybe we'll get ahead of the game and we'll start the September game a little early. That also might be contingent on some other things, but we don't have to talk about that.
We've already, like KJ and I have already talked about, and I think we have all the way to November picked.
I think so.
For games. So
yeah.
But we're making it so that we don't announce those until each podcast. So at the end of every podcast, we will announce which game is for the next month. And because we're definitely trying to like do it within a month. Some games might be games that you guys have already played and beaten. Some of them, like Live Alive, are literally brand new that I don't think anybody in the community has beaten yet because it just came out on Friday. And so, but that if you beat it within the month, feel free to join us with the podcast. But just like Grandia, we will do like a whole segment like we did. We break down things, we talk about stuff, and then we'll have a segment at the end for spoiler, like super spoiler stuff. So like the end of the game, if we want to talk about it, if we get that far. It does sound like it's a shorter game, so we should have no problem with it. And then also might be where we start bringing up some like images or maybe videos, and then we would also save those for like towards the end of the stream. That way, anybody who wants to like turn the volume down and like click off the stream for a little bit for that bit, and then they're just, like, and then we announce the next game anyway. So yeah, that's kind of where we're leaning at it. But any of your thoughts for Live Alive? What you've seen so far, or have you seen anybody play it yet? I know P-Stone's playing it.
Bit. I played. I saw a little bit of it when P-Stone was playing it. I think it's gonna be cool. I'm really excited. I think it's gonna be really cool.
It looks yeah, it looks really interesting. I saw like the pixel sprites and stuff. Like I'm very curious. It's apparently, is it like a remake of an older game, or is it like
it was on so as Champ mentioned, it was on the Super Famicom.
Okay.
It didn't it never made it to the US or got it never got an official English translation.
Okay, so that's why I've never heard of it. Okay.
Yeah, it never got an official English translation.
A lot of those like Japanese only games, a lot of them I haven't heard of. Especially like because a lot of my RPG knowledge and stuff like that was what came over here. So for like North America and everything. So that's why I'd never heard of it. So it is a remake or remaster of the one from like Super Famicom, aka Super Nintendo. Very cool. I'm really excited to dive into something I have absolutely no concept whatsoever.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I think
all I see is trending on Twitter right now is that people who are playing Live Alive are comparing it to Chrono Trigger, which has yeah, and now Chrono Trigger is trending again as a topic on Twitter, and I'm like, oh really? This might be super intriguing.
What?
Yeah, like I keep seeing Twitter posts about it, and I was talking to somebody on Twitter. I forgive me that I'm blanking on the username, but we were talking about it earlier this morning, and they're like, "I love that because of Live Alive, Chrono Trigger's trending again," and I was like, "I'm really excited about that, and I hope more people play Chrono Trigger as a result." But I'm very intrigued on how they compare and why that's happening.
Yeah.
Yes, Augie, I do agree Chrono Trigger should always be trending, but I mean, I've learned that life doesn't always go my way, and
my goodness. That's
So,
wild.
yeah, but yeah. I think that wraps up everything. We announced our new game, so we're either going to be on August 21st, which is going to be on KJ's stream, or depending on the situation with the con, August 28th, one of those 2 days. And we're going to be reviewing the next book club RPG game we're doing is Live Alive, a brand new one that came out just this Friday. So
It looks like
I saw Matthew posting in the chat being like interested in maybe grabbing it. Like anybody interested in grabbing it and playing it. Absolutely. We're gonna be sharing like our experiences and stuff like that. I might do maybe at least one Discord stream where I stream a little bit of it in Discord. Because I'm not playing the whole game, so I don't want to like dedicate like a stream to it. But also because it's partly the whole thing is that we're doing this off stream. But I might stream a little bit of to the Discord. We'll see.
Oh yeah, this looks beautiful. Like I'm seeing some of the I'm on Twitter and looking at some of the 3D the HD like the HD 2D and it looks really good.
I'm super excited. I heard they did like Matthew was mentioning they did like a really great job at updating. I would love to like I need to look like how it used to look and how it looks now. I need to look at that before I play for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, okay, so it sounds like we'll be starting that probably tomorrow or Tuesday, so that's exciting.
Yes, so exciting. Yeah, I think
But yeah, this has been awesome. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you everybody in chat for putting us up, hosting. I really appreciate those who gifted subs and biddies and everything. That was very kind of you all, and doing that as well. And I really appreciate everybody understanding that while the chat is going on, because we just literally did this back to back. I had a co-op stream yesterday too, where it's hard to like read all the chat messages and super interact when you have like a bunch of people. And then for this, for like the podcast and everything, we try to make it like nice and flowing because eventually KJ and I would love to upload it to like maybe Spotify or something or YouTube and stuff where we cut and do transitions and stuff of them. So we're already in the process of like starting to kind of set those up. So that's really exciting. So we really appreciate everybody in chat who's been like, commenting, but like kind of with the flow of things. And every now and then we like throw in that into the conversation, but we're very understanding and patient and stuff that we are doing this kind of podcast segment stuff. Like all of you guys are amazing. Thank you everybody here who's lurking, posted, all like we like thank you. Like KJ and I really appreciate it because we love this. So how dare you not comment on everything I say, champion? But yeah, I have too many games to complete. But after finishing Bravely Default 2 and Final Fantasy 9, I probably will pick up Live Alive. Let's go, Yato. That's why we started this podcast partly is to start playing also games off stream because KJ and I realized our backlog is insanely long for RPG games. Especially even ones where we want to maybe even replay them. Like for myself, like I want to replay Tales of Destiny and there's some games in there I want to replay and like be able to fit that in and all the new stuff that I haven't gotten to play yet. And that's why we started this is exactly why Yato, because our like thing is like a freaking mile long. Even the ones we're not planning on streaming or not in the streaming list yet is super long. So this lets us do one a month, get as far as we can, and are trying really hard to beat it. That's kind of our point is that we're trying to beat it. And then talk about it with you guys.
Yeah. And Polly says Tales of Destiny, and my wallet cries because if I do go out, I might buy that. So
it's so expensive, it's so good. It's honestly, I watching you play Valkyrie Profile, I think you will actually like Tales of Destiny. It's a similar kind of battle system-y, similar.
Usually, it doesn't usually take too much to. Like, I'm not that big of a critic.
Yeah, and honestly, like it's one of those kind of games that like JRPG scenario side of things. Another tangent, but it's unique. Like it has like a side scrolly sort of battle system. The pixel graphics are different than what you'll see in other RPG games in that era. Like and the story was very unique and like the concept of everything is really interesting. Like it was very different from other JRPGs of its time period. So I'm excited for you to give that a try at some point.
I think that'll be exciting. Cool. So, what's next? What is next? What are we?
So yeah,
Should we find somebody to raid?
I guess we look into rating and just kind of wrap up with the conversation and chat, I guess. Tales of Destiny 2 is more expensive. The funny thing about Tales of Destiny 2, it was only called Tales of Destiny 2 over here. But I think it's like Tales of like Eternia or something like that. KJ has it, which I'm super jealous about. He actually has it. I've never played the game, but I've heard it's really good.
I have
but
not
I've never
played
gotten to play it. We're gonna have to get a bucket to catch the tears of KJ's wallet. I mean, that's facts. You see that collection behind him? Like, I mean, there's still a lot of the ones that I'm missing out of mine, and of course, a lot of them are expensive, like Valkyrie Profile. I might even just be complacent to have Valkyrie Profile at this point. Seeing how that Valkyrie Profile game just keeps climbing, it's like $400 Canadian at this point. But
it's a little scary.
Not a big of a critic. Awesome. So we're doing a side-by-side banjo stream with Polly. No.
It would be cool at some point to like do a side-by-side where we are playing a game.
Yeah, I think there are a few like co-op games we could do that we could add to the podcast where we could do that. I think that would be really cool if we had a month where we both could like stream together like a once a week or a couple times a week where we're actually doing that. Because there are a few like co-op RPG games I would be down.
Or even something like Grandia where it's like side by side, like it's going to be different with us playing it, but we can play it side by side, and people
where
can
you
still
have that customization where you can make it a little bit more unique. It's too like I mean, technically, one of our games that we're coming up because I don't want to reveal it because it's spoiler for the chat. I mean, but one of the ones we're playing in September, KJ, that would work for that.
Really? Oh, I guess that makes sense. Okay,
because it could be different.
Based on what I know about that, I guess that would make sense.
Yeah. But yes, Tales of Eternia remade for PSP. Yeah, that's it. That's what it's called in Japan. And then they called it Tales of Destiny 2 over here. But I heard it's really good. I've just never played it. But that's also a potential of either a stream game or a podcast game at some point, maybe. Side-by-side Mega Man.
No, there won't be any Mega Man. None of that.
I mean, both of us have Mega Man RPG games on our backlog at this point, but
yes.
Secret of Mana. I mean, you can technically play that as co-op.
I mean, you can play Final Fantasy IX co-op too, but like
I forgot you could do that where somebody controls one of the characters.
Yeah, figure it out. We will figure it out. But yeah, I've been poking around. Do we want to, like, I guess, do we want to rate somebody we know? Do we want to rate somebody, like, there was one person in the Grandia category, but it looks like they're, like, on an eating break.
Oh, okay.
So,
is somebody potentially we want to wait a little bit longer, chat a little bit more, and then rate to? Or do we want to hit up a friend?
I don't know. We can also find somebody else that's just playing a game. Like, I'll poke around in some game categories and see.
Yeah, absolutely. If we want to try to give somebody new an experience, especially since we're kind of talking about a new game that we just played. I got a great idea. Post a YouTube video with both runs, one below the other, to compare your gameplay. See, that would be really, really cool too. If we were recording our runs of like thing. I don't know if Live Alive is that different, like that we could do that. But if I find at the start that might end up being a possibility that will end up very different, I might record all of my Live Alive gameplay. That'd be really
definitely record. I could start recording it and kind of go from there.
Yeah,
one of the
I started with Grandia, and then I was like, I like being at my couch.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. I do like,
or at least the boss fights. That's good. That's
that's a good idea. That's actually a really good idea.
See how we handle the bosses. Oh, I like that. I like that.
That would be good.
Yeah, that'd be really fun.
Yeah. So I guess I would assume we would want to avoid Live Alive. Because we wouldn't be able to like stay really. Yeah, there's only one person playing Grandia 1. There's somebody playing Grandia 2, but I think they're on a BRB. Let me see.
Okay.
Let me see. I'll start poking around.
Yeah. I'm gonna leave this. Honestly, this will be back and forth. So, like when you're hosting, I'll look up stuff,
Okay,
and then when
it's up
you're
to me. Okay,
that's
I
when
gotta
we'll do
find.
it. And I'll read chat right now. So, turn-based tactics. Oh my god, sure.
Shuriken, I'm all for it. I'm all for tactics games. Don't.
I feel like
You
a
know,
tactics game would be a lot longer to play, but one I'm like looking at that might be really interesting. That Pokemon Conquest game.
there's some people playing. Okay, there's some people playing Grandia 2. It's like somebody that has a looks like they have somebody that's like a guest on the stream, but like
Okay.
that could be cool. Like I
Yeah,
mean I
we
know
can
nothing.
rate another Grandia game. It doesn't necessarily have to be
Yeah, that's what I was
Pokemon.
thinking. Hold on, let me send you over. I'll send you over the link, and you can take a look at the stream and see how you're feeling
Okay.
about it. Obviously, it's hard to tell vibes without sound or anything.
Yeah. I mean, this is
Yes,
kind of gonna be more or less a blind.
Pokemon Conquest does have. Yeah, that is a game that could be an interesting one. I feel like it would have been interesting to see KJ's time freeze tactics versus Polly's end of the world. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Maybe we can actually have a video of the time freeze thing, so maybe we can actually put that together for next stream or for next podcast. Because I have that ready. I have that ready to go. Like I have the video. I specifically took that video just in case. I'll actually post it.
Ooh. Yeah, okay, for like the end sequence of Grandia, and
Yeah.
if I come to my computer and play the last little bit, maybe tomorrow night, I can literally record the last like few hours of the
Yep.
game, and just stream it in Discord as well while I'm recording, like I did when I first started. And yeah, we could literally put them side by side as that because we talked about that. You wanted to see how I react for that.
Yes.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, that'd be perfect.
situation. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's so funny too. I'm like in this person's stream for Grandia 2. This game, I've definitely watched my brother play this game. Like, it all looks. I watched my brother play this game. I tried to avoid it because I know Mal was streaming it at one point, and I tried to avoid spoilers, but like, I have distinct memories of like the background and everything watching my brother play this game. So, yeah, I've definitely seen this before. I'm super excited to dive into this eventually.
This seems okay. Like I've read the they have Legend of Zelda themed stuff. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm cool to raid them if you're good with it.
I mean, they seem pretty chill.
Yeah, they seem pretty chill, and there's two of them, and might like it doesn't say anything about not raiding. That's like sometimes you get those like things and they have like it in their tag. The only thing is there's like no backseating and no spoilers, but I mean we have those tags too, so
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
especially
I'm
for
cool
new
with it.
raid plays.
Sounds good. Awesome.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's load that up. So yo, it's Polly and KJ. Dip. Hello, Dip.
Dip,
Good
how's
to
it going?
see you. Yes, we are wrapping up. So that is our Grandia one like overview of the game. We will have a little segment next time we do our podcast on KJ stream about the ending of Grandia because I'm just shy of beating it. So I'll be beating it tomorrow. And if you guys are in my Discord, I'm probably going to stream the last little bit of it and record it. So feel free to hop in there. I'll do that Monday night. So because KJ thinks I'm about 4 or 5 hours, so I'm gonna give myself about 6 hours of like opportunity to just in case I take a little longer because that mountain I was stuck in there at the end where I was trying really hard to get to the end of the game took me a lot longer than I hoped for. But
You'll be fine.
thank you everybody for hanging out. Thank you KJ for also being here and suggesting that we do this kind of book club sort of RPG thing for our podcast. KJ and I have been wanting to do a podcast since like I don't know what 3 months into our friendship, something like that. We have been talking. It's been a while, but it's like coming up with an idea that's different and also just like, I mean that. The funny thing is having the turn-based tangents in our username now for our podcast is like we do go off on tangents sometimes, so it's part of it. Did you just thank yourself? Wait, did KJ thank himself? I missed that.
No, he said
okay.
Yeah, but thank y'all for being here. Thanks everybody. Appreciate y'all.
Yes, Luminary, thank you for being here, my dear friend. It's good to see you. Yep, everybody. All right, we're gonna set up this raid. So they are Midna 1078.
Yeah.
Is their
Also,
username?
and they definitely said something, and I was just like, I can't hear, so sorry.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna start up this raid. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I will be back here Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern with more Golden Sun. I'm going through my very first playthrough of Golden Sun as redeemed by Meech and pushed up by KJ. And KJ, you are doing more Valkyrie Profile Wednesday morning at 9 a.m.
I might throw another stream in either Monday or Tuesday. I don't know yet.
Okay. Okay.
I want
So
to try to get through Valkyrie Profile as soon as possible. So
that's fair. That's fair. So KJ might be live
not
either Monday or Tuesday, but they're definitely going to be Wednesday morning for sure.
yes.
So and they're playing Valkyrie Profile for the first time, so that's really exciting. So yeah, thank you everybody. Those are the raid messages. We need to come up with one with our tangent one.
Yeah, we should. We definitely should. We'll work on it.
We'll do that for next time. But if you're subscribed to me, you could copy the emotes. If you're not subscribed to me, just copy the free one, and we'll mention it when we get over there. They're playing Grandia too, so definitely no spoilers and no backseating, but they seem really chill and they're doing kind of a co-op situation. So yeah, thank you guys for being here. Thank you, KJ. And
Thank you
we're
for having me,
gonna send off the raid. All right. Bye guys.
friends.
Good Tuesday. Bye. All right. So I sent it off.